Today what we're going to be doing is ranking every single fully evolved viable Pokemon in the Mega Dimension DLC. Basically anything that could be usable in like the Season 5 ranked ladder, I've put it into a little tier list. We're going to rank all of these guys from S to D tier rank because I think they are actually all viable. You know, every single Pokemon is someone's favorite Pokemon. Macharn is one of my favorites, so it definitely makes the list. So we're going to be ranking everything that I think could be usable. And, you know, we've done a couple tier lists for Legends ZA Season 5, and that was before we knew that you could actually use, like, multiple legendaries and, like, mythicals and stuff like that on one team. So I feel it's about time that we actually update this tier list and include a bunch of the other Pokemon to flesh it out, because there's, like, some sleeper picks here. Things like Annihilape, like Goldango, even, like, Flamigo are actually, like, super good in this format. And if you guys want to see another tier list, we actually have like a lot more of the decks where we include things like, you know, Garchomp, Gyarados, like other legendaries, other things that are viable. Let me know and I'll try and see what I can do maybe like next week for a future tier list video here. So let's get right into this. We're going to start off with Blaziken here. We're going to start off with Blaziken. We're also live streaming this on Twitch TV/that's+1, so everybody say hi. Blaziken's actually a pretty cool Pokemon. We had like a basic EV spread right there. But I think Blaziken's actually really cool. The fact that you can actually build Blaziken as like a mixed sweeper is really nice. Actually, there's a couple Blaziken sets that I want to feature in future videos, but a standard Blaziken would be like Sash with like, you know, it usually gets like Swords Dancer, Bulk Up. Earthquake's still going to be very popular in this format because there's so many like steel types. This is definitely like the steel and fire type meta. And then from there, you have like Blaze Kick, which is a, you know, a move that was added as a TM in this game. One of Blaziken's signature moves, right? So Blaze Kick's gonna be really good. And then like you have like a close combat or like a brick break. So very standard moveset on a Sash set. A standard Blaziken EV spread's gonna look something, you know, a little bit like this. There's a Blaziken set that I really do want to feature though, that looks like this with Sash, and I think it could be like so nice. You actually go speed reduce nature on it, and you go with like overheat, solar beam to check things like Swampert, right? And then you have access to like close combat or focus blast. It's up to you. And then maybe like, you know, like a Blaze Kick or something. So it's like you're like a mixed sweeper Blaziken. I think this could actually be super viable. Base 110 special attack is like definitely high enough to pick up KOs on Swampert if you use like a plus move solar beam. So this is actually like really cool. I really want to try out this Blaziken set in a future video. So I think like Blaziken's actually like super viable, especially as a Sash user. I think one of the biggest problems though with Blaziken is it takes your Sash, and honestly, I think that almost every single team should have a Sash user in this format. There's a lot of good ones, you know, things like Zeraora and Darkrai are mythicals and legendaries. They can take your Sash slot, so it's like Terrakion. So you're competing with not only these legendaries, but other like really good, you know, established picks. Things like, you know, Excadrill are still great Sash users. Things like Goldango, we've seen a little bit of Sash Dango. Sash Ceruledge is viable right now. So there's like a lot of solid Sash users. So I think like Blaziken is like a solid like upper level B tier mon. I don't think it breaks into that A tier, even though it does have the fire and like fighting coverage with Earthquake, because like again it's having to compete with legendaries and it's using a very popular item slot, but it's still definitely like on the upper crust of viable in my opinion. Yo, is that a gifted sub? 5 gifted subs. I just want to say thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. If you got gifted a sub by XCraze, please think about saying thank you. It would really make my day. And, you know, speaking about making my day, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Happy to have you here, my friend. Let's put some subs up in the chat right here. Bam, wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Big subs up. Thank you so much. Hopefully you're having a good one. Hopefully you like this sort of tier list content. And if you guys have any suggestions on any sort of like specific content you want to see me make in future videos and future streams, please think about letting me know. Like, I want to make the sort of content you guys want to see. If that means more tier list content, more team building guides, more meta breakdowns, more tournament reviews, I'm open to those things. If you guys have ideas, let me know, and let's get right back into it. Again, thank you so much. 5 gifted subs, that's a whole heck of a lot of money, my friend. Happy to have you here, and you know, we couldn't do it without you. Let's go into Swampert here. I think Swampert is a very good Pokemon. I actually think that Swampert might be one of like my favorite Pokemon to use as far as like the new Pokemon in Legends ZA are. Like, it just feels good using Swampert. You can use it alpha, you can use it non-alpha. I know a lot of people have been asking me, do you use alpha or non-alpha on these? You probably want most of these Pokemon to be alpha if you're going to be using them, in my opinion. Even like Blaziken, great alpha. It's going to create a higher hitbox for a lot of these damaging moves. Your Earthquakes, your Overheats, you're going to be doing like wider damage. Swampert's no exception. Like, it's it's going to be wanting to do more damage with Earthquake. Like, if you use any move that has like a big area of effect, you want to use those alpha Pokemon. But Swampert seems like so good, right? Swampert seems so good. You can build it with like Life Orb. I've seen people go like Rindo Berry for like grass reduction. I don't particularly like that one. I've also seen like a Salt Vest Swampert, because that can kind of work as well for mitigating some like solar beams in some situations. But I like the Life Orb set. It's one of my favorites. Rocky Helmet is also a very good one. You know, it gets access to like Bulk Up. It gets access to Earth or Earth Power Earthquake. You can actually build it physical or special. I think it's better built physical though. Rocky Helmet. I think Rocky Helmet was initially what I started out with. It's solid. It gets Gap Closers and Waterfall. And one of the cool things about Swampert is if you build it kind of like this has, you know, you have coverage for like Heatrans and like fire and steel types. You have coverage for like other fire and like rock types and stuff like that. And you have like dragon coverage right here. It's so nice. This Pokemon just seems really good to use, and it moves pretty fast around the map. Its moves come out really quick. I feel like Swampert is just a good glue Pokemon that like really fits onto a lot of teams. You know, being able to like check dragons, have that ground typing. This Pokemon's like a fusion of like a Garchomp, Golisopod, and an Excadrill fused together. Having the only weakness it has be to grass means it's like really, really one-dimensional, and like you know exactly what's checking it. Like, so if someone swaps in something that knows Solar Beam, you know that it knows Solar Beam, they know that it knows Solar Beam, you're just gonna swap to your Heatran or something else, mitigate that damage, and then repin them pretty easily, right? So I really like Swampert. I think if you're like a new player starting to play ranked in Legends EA, this is a great Pokemon to use. Even if you don't have an alpha one, it's still definitely viable. I think Swampert's going to go into the A tier for sure. I don't think it's going to crack the S tier, just because we have so many busted legendaries, and honestly Swampert does struggle to keep up tempo with things like, you know, Hoopas, like Magearnas and stuff like that. It struggles a little bit in that regard, I'm not gonna lie, but it's still a very, very solid Pokemon that you can put into a wide variety of teams. Like, honestly, almost any Pokemon, you could just splash a Swampert onto it, and it's gonna be a better team in my opinion. So let me know what you think about Swampert, and let's get into my favorite Mega Evolution, and its you know, unevolved form being Sceptile. You know, I'm one of those guys that's been using a lot of Sceptile. I think there's a lot of YouTubers that are not really giving Sceptile like the right time of like day. They're not really using Sceptile to its strengths. I think physical regular Sceptile is probably the better way to play it, honestly. And then obviously like special would be, you know, better on Mega Sceptile just because it has a massive special attack stat. But I think Sceptile is like really usable, and people just aren't using it to its fullest potential. I've featured Sceptile right here, where I just use a actual just Gen 3 starter squad. This is actually what I used to get up to rank A. Really, really cool team. I think that like you just have to go outside the box with Mega Sceptile. Like, I used Hyper Beam with it, and like I was able to just chunk things for neutral because like Mega Sceptile gets a decent special attack stat, right? So like when I'm using Mega Sceptile and I go for like a Solar Beam, Hyper Beam, like their Garchomp's gone, right? Easy peasy, right? It's a really, really usable Pokemon. 145 special attack is actually super cool. The only issue with Mega Sceptile is you have to be in a situation where you have the excess Mega energy to realistically go for a Mega that you normally wouldn't go for. Like, if you could be having that Mega energy to go Mega Sceptile, you could be using a ton more plus moves with something like a Magearna or a Melmetal or something. So like, you have to basically be like winning to actually put yourself in a situation where this Pokemon is viable. But that being said, I do think it's usable. I know when we play regular Sceptile, I like to like Life Orb. I think I went Life Orb Swords Dance on it, and I played it with like Dragon Rush and Earthquake, and it was totally viable, right? Like, I think my set was like that. Very, very usable Mon. I think that like people sleep on it. 85 base attack is low, but when you pair it with the Life Orb and the fact that like these moves hit a lot of the common Mons in the meta, very, very usable in my opinion. Definitely usable. If I were to rank regular Sceptile, I'd put it near the top of the C tier in my opinion. And if I were to rank Mega Sceptile, it's hard to say. I don't think it's a B tier pick because like it does take so... You know what? I'm gonna put it in the B tier. I like this Pokemon. I think it is viable, and I think every single other big YouTuber is not giving it the fair shake. I think that you just need to go back to the drawing board and find other ways to use it. It gets access to things like Workup as well, I believe, if you want to go for some stat boosting, but like Leaf Storm, Solar Beam, you know, Dragon Pulse is stab in this Mega form. You have the tools with Sceptile. You can make it work. You just gotta like think outside the box a little bit. High skill ceiling Pokemon, very fast, very fun to use if you can get Sceptile rolling, and it takes a lot of the right teammates to make it work, but like it's a perfect partner for something like a Heatran, which is really, really good in the meta. Same thing for like Magearna. Magearna and Sceptile go together very well in my opinion. So think about giving it a shot, and let's go into the rest of the list. Mr. Rime, one of my other favorite Pokemon. I really do like Mr. Rime a lot. It's probably one of my favorite screen setters. So if we plug in Mr. Rime right here, you can see it's like base stats aren't super high, but it gets access to like, you know, light screen. It gets access to reflect, which is really, really nice. And then it also gets access to like freeze dry. Remember, this is going to be able to hit water types, are super effective as well. So against like Gyarados, Swampert, you're going to be able to hit those guys for 4 times super effective ice moves. And then you can also just put like a Psychic on it if you want other coverage, or you can just go for like an Ice Beam and like double dip dragons. When I played this guy, I played it with a Nevermelt Ice, and I really liked this thing as a screen setter. I felt it paired very well with other Pokemon like Heatran and Volcanion and stuff like that. So I think this is actually like a super viable Pokemon in my opinion. Probably one of my favorite screen setters against like the super aggressive like Garchomp meta that we're seeing right here. It struggles a little bit into like some of the steel types against things like, you know, Melmetal, Magearna and stuff like that. So you do have to swap away or have really good teammates, but I think it's actually super viable. As far as like screen setters go, definitely one of my favorites. I would probably put it though, it's probably going to be like right here. I think it's probably like the middle of B tier is where I would be putting Mr. Rime, just because like it has so many weaknesses. You can usually get up one screen and pivot, and I think with the abundance of stuff like Golisopod, like if a Live Orb Golisopod wants to use like a plus move first impression, I'm gonna get one-shotted, right? Even off the rip, there's a chance that that first impression could like crit and KO me before I even get a reflect up if we start in the corner on something like the minus map. So I think in this sort of situation, it can get up screens, but you have to get a little bit of a good matchup. And I think this is one of the strengths of Mr. Rime. Is actually like, you know, in the mid game when people transition into what their megas are and their big Garchomps and stuff like that after they kind of got a little bit of mega energy, Mr. Rime's great. Like mid game freeze dries, mid game ice beams, you can steal KOs, set your screen, and then go into something like, you know, a different setup mount, like potentially like a Mega Darkrai or something, and actually like go into like a big late game. So I think it's usable. But, you know, don't get got by like a lot of the common weaknesses. It has weaknesses to fire, steel, bug, you know, a lot of different stuff like that. Rock, you know, so watch out. Don't just get dump trucked, but once you know what your opponent's using, this guy can be really good. Let's go on to Annihilape. So Annihilape's going to be the next Pokemon we're going to be talking about here. And I think Annihilape's definitely usable, right? Annihilape gets like a really, really good base stat coverage. It gets access to like bulk up. It's probably one of the better Drain Punch users in the format. So I think it's really, really solid. It gets that. Annihilape not wrecking any format, it's challenge impossible. And like, Annihilape's like busted. Like it's super, super good. I think most people play it with like Drain Punch here. A lot of people still go Rage Fist. Some people want to tech Ice Punch onto it. I actually think when I've played this, I've gone Drain Punch, Rage Fist, and I went, sorry, not Rage Fist. I went Drain Punch, Phantom Force, and I went Ice Punch. I didn't want to do the Rage Fist when I played it, and it's okay. I think Annihilape's like a really, really solid Pokemon. You can build it Orb, you can build it, you know, I've tried it with Citrus Berry, I've tried it with a couple different damage reduction berries. I like it. I think it's definitely a usable mon. Orb is probably one of my favorite sets on it. I'm wondering where I should really put Annihilape, though. I don't know if Annihilape is A tier for me. What do you guys think? I'm going to ask the chat here. I'm going to phone a friend. Where would you guys put Annihilape? Because, like, I don't think it's, like, S tier broken, but I think it's, like, better than B tier. I'm thinking maybe low A. That's where I'm thinking about putting it, is, like, low A. Low A at worst. Do you really think it's better than that? Because I think Annihilape actually gets pinned by, like, a lot of the other, like, megas that are running around. That's just my opinion. Because, like, I think Goldango can like, pseudo-check it. I think, like, Melmetal has a great matchup into it. Alright, we'll put it in A for sure. Put it behind Swampert. I like Swampert more than Annihilape. I think a lot of people would probably flip these, but I like Swampert more. So I'll put it in A. Yeah, I don't think it's like a B tier pick, but I definitely think it could be deserving of at least A tier for now. Because you're going to start to see, like, these legendaries are just going to, like, be all up over here, right? So let's take a look at Overqwil. Now, Overqwil is a Pokemon that I think a lot of people like, but I think it's harder to use Overqwil than people initially think in this format because, like, Overqwil has a weakness to Ground. And Ground is, like, the numero uno, like, best type in this format. Offensively and defensively, like, Ground is everywhere. So, like, you can EV train this guy to not get killed by Earthquake, but at the same time, Dark Poison doesn't really do that much back to Ground types. So it's like, all it takes to really ruin this guy's day is, like, a Skarmory or, like, a Garchomp. I think the fact that, like, you also take, like, pretty decent damage from, like, you know, you take neutral fighting, you know, you take neutral to a lot of, like, weird typing. It's a unique mon. 115 base attack is definitely usable, but it's harder to use, and I think it takes a lot of like investment to actually make work. I think it's a cool mon, right? But at the same time, where would we put it, right? I think it's probably better than base form Sceptile, but I think it's like a C tier mon. It's hard to say. I think it's probably right around here. That would be my guess. 1v1 and win sounds awesome. I mean, it might be, yeah. You're talking about the Annihilape, right? Yeah. Annihilape can be EV trained to like outvalue Goldango in some situations, but like you gotta put a lot of points in the defense the special defense in that situation. So I think I would probably put this guy in C tier, just because like there's so many steals as well. Like you can't realistically use like your poison stab, or like a lot of the steals in this meta are like Magearna. Magearna's like everywhere, and Heatran's like everywhere, and like you don't really do a ton to those guys with a Overqwil, in my opinion. So it's usable, but like not particularly. Let's take a look at Mega Scovillain, right? So Scovillain here, you have the base form Scovillain, which is right there, so 108, 108, and then when it goes to Mega, it basically gets a Life Orb. I actually don't particularly like this thing. I think it's pretty underwhelming. You have to ask for permission, basically, when you Mega Evolve, to utilize this base 138 in either of your stats, and then you're basically a glass cannon, because, like, 65, 85, 85 is not really cutting it. The cool thing is you can go physical or special with this guy. It gets access to, you know, a bunch of different, like, you know, offensive things like Flare Blitz, or you can go Flare Blitz or Overheat or physical or special, but like I don't think it really gets anything going. I think it does get access to like stat boosting moves like Nasty Plot and stuff like that, but I'm just not seeing a situation where this guy's viable. I think this might be the first D level Pokemon on our list, just because it takes so much like resources. You have to hoard so much resources to use Mega Evolutions in these formats. You know, if you actually take a look at any like tournament VODs or tournament reviews, what you're gonna realize is like all of the top teams, they're not using Mega Evolutions. Like Mega Evolutions are cool. I personally still like to feature a lot of Mega Evolutions, but like people are just like spamming plus moves and not using megas. And the megas that do get used are very specific. Things like Mega Skarmory, things like, you know, you see a little bit of Mega Absol, Mega Lucario-Z every once in a while, sometimes Mega Bax, but like even Mega Darkrai is like not used, right? And so I think like Scovillain, having to put all those resources when you could be using like a really good Pokemon, it just makes it really underwhelming. Because even if you do get like Mega Scovillain and you pop a Mega, you might be able to KO like one thing before you get traded. Because like any attack your animation you're going to be going into is going to have those like, you know, negative frames of like recovery and stuff like that. If you're going to be going for solar beams or overheats or stuff like that, you're just going to get one tapped by like a random Pokemon using something stupid. So it's a cool Pokemon, but I don't necessarily think it's like amazing in this format. All right, let's talk about the Marowak bros. I think that like base form Marowak, the Kanto Marowak, is probably a little bit better than Alolan Marowak, but like, you know, one cool thing about Marowak here. So one good thing about Marowak is it gets access to the Thick Club, which actually doubles its attack stats. So it's like, it's actually not even that weak. So this is one of the strongest Pokemon in the game, and he gets one of the best moves in the game, being Boomerang. Way better than Earthquake, in my opinion. It's going to hit 2 times, so it can break sashes, dump truck things, has a huge wide area. It just throws that bone out, and it just does so much damage. People tend to play it with like Boomerang. They sometimes still go like Stone Edge and stuff like that. This is a very, very solid Pokemon. I definitely would put this in the A rank for this format, just because there's so many steals. Magearna, you know, Melmetal, Volcanion, Heatran. Volcanion's not a steal, but it's weak against it, right? Everything's weak. All like, you know, Terrakion, Cobalion, you know, Glimmora. Like, you just start to see more and more ground weakness. So like, Marowak's definitely usable with that Boomerang because it gets the big stab on it. I'd put it in the A tier. I don't know where I would put it though. I would put it behind Annihilape, I think. It's another good Pokemon, but I think the fact that it gets like one tapped by like Solar Beam is, you know, rough. I think it has its ice weakness is rough, its water weakness is rough, but that being said, it can one-shot like Magearna and stuff like that. Both Marowaks are so dummy strong that it's kind of unfair that the low speed, but that low speed hurts. Yeah, they're very slow moving. All right. I'm not even going to hold you. The only reason I checked if you were live is because Dead Stuff and Coffee came up on my Spotify shuffle. Yo, thank you so much. Happy to hear it, yo. Yeah, we're making music over here. I'm trying to make like 1 or 2 new songs every like month or 2. So thank you so much for letting me know that actually popped up. Appreciate it. I like that song. The song was a lot of fun. So let's rank the Alolan Marowak. Now, I actually don't think Alolan Marowak is nearly as good, right? Alolan Marowak can still be played with that Thick Club, right? But the problem is Alolan Marowak does not stab the Bone Meringue, the thing that makes the other one good. You have to go more into like Phantom Force. Actually, don't even get Phantom Force, do you? I don't think you get Phantom Force on this thing. You might, but I don't think you do. You get access to like, I think I used Dig on it for like gap closing, and then like Flare Blitz and not Flame Wheel, Flare Blitz. So you get Flare Blitz, and then I used, what is that move that it has? It's a physical move. It's a, let's see. Where is it? Physical. Shadow Bone, that's what it is right here. So it's like Shadow Bone's like okay, it's good coverage, but it takes a while to come out. Actually, it takes a little bit longer to come out than I want. So it's like this set like works. You could put another coverage move there or like a stat boosting move or something. I think it's okay, but the fact that it doesn't get that like long range Bone Meringue means you have to kind of get up close next to things, and when you have a ground weakness yourself, getting nice up next to close things is not going to work. Like you're never once going to be able to outvalue a Garchomp with this thing. I think I ran it with Outrage too. And like, I kid you not, I tried to outrage like 3 or 4 Garchomps, walked up to it and just got EQ'd right in the face, right? So I think it's like usable, but like barely. I'd probably put it like right here. It's because it is good, but it takes a lot more babysitting, I think, than, you know, the base form Kanto Marowak. And losing the stab on Bone Meringue, being able to gain like a ground weakness yourself, it's just not cutting it. I think in any other VGC or like competitive Pokemon format, Alolan Marowak is way better than the Kanto one, but like not in this one. So Kanto Marowak stays winning over here. Man, we have a whole lot more Pokemon to rank. Let's talk about Mimikyu next. So Mimikyu is one of my favorites. I usually build this thing with a Life Orb. Now, it does retain its ability in this game, so it's going to be able to take a hit like once. I think it's like a minute-long cooldown, actually, if I'm recalling correct, because I think you can use it a couple times per match, but you can take a hit and actually still do what you want. A lot of people tend to play it with like Swords Dance. I tend to play it with like Phantom Force, Play Rough. And then, like, you have the last move here. Shadow Claw is very, very standard, so you can gap close with one of those and finish off with Shadow Claw. You don't really need the Shadow Sneak. You can also put stuff like Wood Hammer if you really want to pop, like, Swamperts, if those are a big problem for your team. I think Mimikyu's, like, definitely, like, a usable Pokemon. It has a very small hitbox, so it's, like, it's really hard to target the Mimikyu, and it can kind of move around the map pretty well. It has decent matchups into, like, Goldangos and Annihilapes and things like that, so I tend to like Mimikyu a lot, but I know that it's like pretty weak. You're actually going to miss a lot of KOs unless you have like a red buff or something like that, even with the Swords Dance. Like, I don't even think like Play Rough from Life Orb like kills Garchomp unless you have the SD, and then even then like a bulky Garchomp might be able to live it. So Mimikyu is one of those Pokemon. I'm going to put it at the top of the B tier. I think it's definitely usable, but it's one of those things where it's like, ugh, like Steel weakness, Ghost weakness, the fact that like after your disguise is popped, you get KO'd by like every random mons, like a Magma Storm will just KO you, right? Mimikyu reminds me of Stunfisk, the way it dodges so much stuff, but still has the coverage to threaten most things. It's a good way of putting it. I think it's like very similar to like Season 1 Stunfisk. Very, very good observation with like good like homing moves, you know, like Phantom Force and Player Up, just like how Stunfisk has things like, you know, Thunderbolt and Earth Power. Solid analogy right there. So let's talk about Sirfetch'd. Sirfetch'd is a Pokemon that I've seen like a lot of people use, but I don't think it's as good as people say it is. It's 135 base attack. People tend to play it with like Orb, aggressive items, and things like that. Sometimes they even go into like weird like focus energy sets as well, with like scope lens and things like that. I think it's like usable in either of those ways. It gets access to Meteor Assault, right? It's basically like a physical Hyper Beam. It just like makes you go all the way across the map. I think this was a lot better in Season 4. I don't think this is as good in this format just because there's a lot more ghosts. And while there are a lot of steals, there's also a lot more like bugs and like other things, like I said, like ghosts that let you like really wall this. A lot of good flying types in this format too. And flying types not only like wall this thing, they have the you know, they repin it with their flying coverage, right? So this guy gets like Leaf Blade and stuff like that. It gets access to cool moves. But at the same time, I'm just not really vibing with this guy. I think that it's one of those guys that if you're going to use a fighting type, why wouldn't you use an Annihilape? Or why wouldn't you use a Machamp or a Pangoro? You know, I feel like those guys just have much better coverage than the Sirfetch'd. That being said, it's not unusable. It's not. 135 base attack is like definitely usable. It has the bulk to be able to soak like one hit from something. Like 62 is pretty bad, but like 95, 82, it can soak like one hit maybe. That being said, I don't know if I want to put it in the B tier. I think it's like a good example of the top of C tier. I feel like the fact that this guy has fighting typing and you have like a meta dominated by like Magearna Fairy, like Psychic typing here, like all of the Sword of Justices could potentially outvalue. You have the Latis on almost every single team. I don't really like Sirfetch'd into Garchomp that much. I think it's a C tier mon. I think Sirfetch'd is definitely a fraud, but let me know if you agree. I think it's just one of those guys that, like, whenever I see someone playing Sirfetch'd, I'm like, I'm a Psychic that's free, right? Because they don't really play it with, like, Sash, you know? Maybe they should. Maybe more people should play Sash. But I feel like the cooldown that you get from using that Meteor Assault, when you go all the way through, you're stuck there, and, like, you get KO'd every single time. You might get a KO if you use Sirfetch'd, but you're going to go 1 for 1, right? All right, let's take a look at Wigglytuff. Now, I've not seen anyone use Wigglytuff. I've only played with it a couple times, right? But Wigglytuff is actually cool, right? Wigglytuff is normal and fairy. I think it's the only Pokemon that has that, like, type combination in this game. So if you're using something like, you know, a Goldango or an Annihilape and you need, like, a pivot to block a Shadow Ball, this can be that guy for you. So if you're really weak to, like, ghost typing, this can be really good. One of the cool things about Wigglytuff is, like, it gets a pretty decent special attack stat, but it gets, like, all the coverage moves, right? So, and I think they also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they gave it Moonblast. SB Crash, how goes it? I think, yeah, they gave it Moonblast now, finally. So, it gets access to, like, Dark Pulse, Energy Ball, Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Ice Beam, Psychic, Thunder, Thunderbolt. So, like, you got the Bolt Beam over here, and, like, fire coverage, right? That's cool. That's, like, really cool. One of my favorite, like, I think you could Life Orb this guy, honestly, but, like, I've just been playing it like that, and I think that it's usable. 85 base special attack, you know, you don't get access to the competitive ability in ZA. It's definitely usable, right? Barely. It's funny, right? When I play this guy, you know, I tend to like Wigglytuff a lot. It's one of my actual favorite shinies because I really like the green eyes on it, and I think it's usable. It has a massive base HP, so you don't need to really invest that much. So, like, with Wigglytuff, you can invest, like, you can basically just make your set like this and, like, lean on the fact that you have that massive base HP and just have, like, a lot of value with it. So, like, that's kind of how I've been playing Wigglytuff, and I've just enjoyed it. I think it's definitely, like, a usable mon. It's great into things like Garchomp. You can eat that EQ and reply back with, like, 2 moves that pin it pretty well. So where would I put it? I'd probably put Wigglytuff right about here. Just usable Pokemon that I think a lot of people sleep on and aren't really used to seeing all that often. And yeah, I think it's one of those things that I think could be usable at, like, a high level in tournament play if people, like, if Goldango usage dropped a little bit. Because, like, I do think it's pinned pretty hard by, like, Flash Cannons, Steel Beams, and stuff like that. So maybe in the next format it might be even just a little bit better. Crobat. Now, Crobat is weird because, like, it's not something that, you know, a lot of people really use. I think if you were to look at Crobat, it's not very strong on both physical or special. I think common Crobat sets would be something like Sash or, like, Life Orb. And then if you want to build it physical, the issue with that is, while it does get better physical moves, like things like Brave Bird, and if you sort it by physical, right, it gets access to, like, you know, Brave Bird, Dual Wing Beat, usually gets, like, knockoff Leech Life, things like that, like Poison Fangs, Psychic Fangs. It gets access to better physical moves. Stronger physical moves, but the problem is they have, like, no coverage. Like, one steel type says you're done, doesn't get access to, like, a drill run or anything like that. So I actually think you should be better building this guy special. It has a lower special attack stat, but it gets access to better moves like Nasty Plot, and if you sort it by this, it gets access to, like, Hurricane, Heat Wave, right? I think if you were to sort it by special, it gets access to, like, Dark Pulse, Giga Drain, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Stab. This is better. Not by much, but technically better. It's like a really bad Mega Pidgeot. And one of the cool things about Crobat that people don't talk about is Poison Flying typing is actually really unique in this format. You can pivot in to block Earthquakes, but it also makes for a really good pivot to block Fairy moves. So, like, if you're, and Bug. So, like, if you're weak against Golisopod in, like, any wave, this is a good pivot. If you're weak against, like, Fairy moves, you can pivot in this guy and repin those Fairies in some situations. I think Crobat's really cool, but it's, like, definitely like a glass cannon. I'd probably be putting Crobat right here. I have a video coming out with Crobat relatively soon where you guys are going to be surprised by how well it does, but it's definitely like a one-trick pony. I don't think it would stand up well in tournament play, but you can definitely take, like, a Crobat to rank A. It's definitely usable enough to make that work. So Crobat is in the C tier for now, and who knows, it might even be even better in formats with, like, Xerneas and stuff like that. So let's take a look at Houndstone next. Now, Houndstone is a bit of a weird mon. I've used it in one video, and Last Respects, I think, honestly, is not that good in this format, but I think I built it with, like, Life Orb. So Life Orb is how I built it. I built it with like Phantom Force. I think I built it with like, let's sort by physical. I think I built it with like Ice Fang and stuff like that. So we had Ice Fang. We had, I think I had Seed Bomb on it too. And like maybe like a, some sort of like other coverage move. It's super slow. Yeah, I really thought the Houndstone was like underwhelming. Where did I play Houndstone? What did I surround it with? Right here. So I surrounded it with like T-Tar and Salamence and stuff like that. I feel like those are usable teammates to surround it with. It was a cool video, like Life Orb Houndstone. Like you will one-shot like Garchomps with like a plus move Life Orb Ice Fang, and people don't really see that coming. But that means you're just basically similar to the Crobat. You're just a one trick. So I think Houndstone is probably right here. It's not really bulky enough to get any value. Like it's one of those Pokemon that in VGC and, you know, competitive battles, it really relies on its abilities, and not having these abilities means like this stat line is just really subpar. You might be able to eat like one attack, but if you're also Life Orb, you're taking away your health, which like is a very valuable resource on this thing. If I were to compare this to one Pokemon in like previous other formats, it'd be like Arbok. Like you can use it. Ice Fang will get the KOs if you use the plus, but like you're gonna get one tapped every single time you use this thing. So it's cool, but definitely not great. So let's take a look at Morpeko here. Very unique Pokemon. I've only seen a few people really use this thing. It does get its ability kind of here to where when you use, basically, it doesn't change at the end of every turn. It changes when you use Aura Wheel. And let me know if I'm wrong here. I think Aura Wheel does give you a +1 attack boost, similar to how like Mega Raichu X like gets like a boost in that situation as well when it uses like Volt Tackle. I think it's either a speed boost or an attack boost. I could be wrong. It's usable. It gets access to like a lot of physical and special moves. Usually these guys are tend to build physical. It gets access to like cool options like Seed Bomb, right, that most people don't really see coming. It gets access to like knockoff, usually other moves like that. And then like as far as like it gets Ice Fang, like if you want coverage for dragons, like it's there. It gets the coverage. If you need to Life Orb this guy or Sash it probably. One of the values of this thing is it's basically similar to Mimikyu. It's really, really tiny, right? So it's hard to target this guy, and you're able to get a lot of value out of it. I haven't really seen a lot of YouTubers feature this thing yet, but I think it's better than people give it credit for. 95 base special attack is good with this sort of coverage. So I think it's more usable than a lot of other people are giving it credit for, but like probably right here. The fact that it still has that fairy weakness and a ground weakness, it's too deep. Like you're getting one tapped every single time. Like what you're starting to see a pattern is all of these Pokemon in like the C tier are viable. You can use a Morpeko or a Sirfetch'd or even like a Overqwil or a Sceptile, and you can get that KO. You can like use a setup move. You can find someone that's overextended. You can KO. But the second you KO something, you're getting tapped back, right? So you're going 1-for-1 like every single time. The value with these upper tier Pokemon is like you might not get O-code right back. You might be able to get like 1.5 KOs or 2 KOs, right? They're better Sash users. They have better sets for like optimizing trades, right? And you're starting to see the Pokemon up at the very top, like they just have better like AoE options, which means when they go for that 1 KO, they usually get 2, right? So it's like that's what's kind of separating. The Pokemon that are in the D tier are things that even if you have the perfect storm of situations, you don't even guarantee get that first KO. So hopefully that explains like a little bit of my reasoning behind why some things are where they are. Now, Kleavor is a Pokemon that we're going to talk about next. So Kleavor is going to be a little bit weird. So Kleavor is pretty cool. I think a lot of people are playing this thing like Scope Lens with like Focus Energy. I think that's how most people are kind of playing this guy with like Stone Axe, like which is a high crit move, I think. Yeah, high crit, is it? It's not high crit, is it? But like Focus Energy makes the Scope Lens, makes that auto crit, and then it sets rocks, and then you have like a bunch of other like crit moves, right? So you get the idea. What other moves does this guy uses that crits? Does it get like Leaf Blade or something? What else do people use? Do you use like Night Slash? Probably. And then like what other moves do people use on this guy? Let's see. I'm not a big Kleavor guy, but I know a lot of people like it. There's one other move that people use. It's like, is it like, let's just sort of by physical and see. Let's see. What other moves do you get? Like Close Combat, maybe? Close Combat's not bad. It's like Gap Closing. Psycho Cut is another high crit move. Steel Wing's cool coverage. It's probably Close Combat, I think. And you kind of just make this guy into like, oh, you guys use Lunge? Lunge is good. Solid Stab. Like, I like it. So, like, this is how I think most people are kind of playing this thing. and I think a couple YouTubers have like featured it. I think it's better than I'm personally giving it credit for. Now, I have not used Kleavor yet. I've just fought against it in lobbies. Being Rock Bug means you actually take neutrality to like some of the really like popular types in this format. You take neutrality to Heat Wave, you might eat one. You take neutrality to Earthquake, you might eat one. The problem with this thing though is it's really rough into things like Mega Scarm, Corviknight, Garchomp, Magearna, stuff like that. So you're gonna struggle against some of like the more popular Pokemon, but this guy's like a beast at feasting on like Chandelures, feasting on like those weird, like anything that's like not up to snuff. I would call like Kleavor like a skill check. That being said, like Dango and Annihilape, some of these other popular Pokemon can give it a lot of big problems. I'd probably put it, this is being generous, I think, putting it in like the middle of the upper B tier. I think that it takes a little bit too much like team building and setup to make this thing work personally, but that's also because it's just been one of those things to where like I have not actually used this thing in this game yet, and all my experience with it is just seeing it massively underperform in lobbies. But I know there are a lot of other like high level players that are using it in tournament play, so I think there's value to it. I think Stone Axe is a very underrated move, being able to set those stealth rocks, and I think that's definitely something that could be like a high skill ceiling Pokemon that still needs to be explored just a little bit. So let's talk about Toxtricity next. Toxtricity. Now, I really like Toxtricity. Problem with this guy is it has a weakness to Psychic and 4 times weakness to Ground. You are going to be hit by every little thing in the world, and it's going to be a big problem. So you say you've been using Kleavor, Ceruledge, and Salamence. I think that sounds like a cool team. Do you agree with Kleavor's like placement here? Because like I can't in good faith put it like up with the best of the best, because like if I look at Kleavor and I look at Terrakion, I definitely think Terrakion's better. And Terrakion's going to be like an A-tier mon probably. And so I cannot in good faith like look at that Kleavor and be like, it's as good as Terrakion, right? So I think it's about right. I'm probably ranking Blaziken a little bit high, but that's because I think that like Sash is very good. So that being said, we're going to take a look at Toxtricity here. Massive weaknesses to a lot of different stuff. Access to Overdrive, which is basically like, you know, like a big cone, kind of like a sludge wave for electric attacks, being able to hit so many different things. Really good stuff. Access to like Sludge Bomb can be good coverage against fairies. Other than that, it doesn't get like a lot of value. You know, it's definitely built more as like a special attacker than a physical attacker, even though it does have a usable physical attack stat, but it just doesn't really have that great of coverage. It obviously gets things like Thunderbolt as well, but I think it's one of those Pokemon that's just not that great. Like it's usable, but like it's really one of those Pokemon that's like previously built better off its abilities in other games. So you have to like Life Orb or Sash it, and then again, those are very popular items, which means this Pokemon kind of underperforms. It's also a little bit slow when it's walking around. So I think it's one of those guys that I'd probably put Toxtricity. I don't even think it's in the C tier. I think it's like probably top of the D tier, and the only reason why it's down here is like the only reason why it's not like here is because like you have Stab Thunderbolt. You know, Stab Thunderbolt's good, right? I think it's a D tier Pokemon. I think a lot of what makes Toxtricity good is in like the main games, in VGC specifically, it has a lot of like AoE moves that target like both opponents' Pokemon, things like Overdrive, and it has good abilities that have synergy with that. And in this game, that just doesn't really correlate the same way. You have a 4-time weakness to Ground. Every single Earth power is going to be headed your way. Every single Psychic. You get double tapped like a lot of different things. And who knows? It might be better, like people are saying, when Zern's back, but like we'd have to see. So we're going to talk about Corviknight here. Now, Corviknight is a Pokemon I do not know why more people aren't using Corviknight, because like I feel like this format more than ever, we're seeing a lack of Thunderbolt usage. We're seeing people still have the Ice Beam coverage, but not having the Thunderbolt coverage. So I think Corviknight could be better. That being said, it has a weakness to fire, so like honestly, I see like a lot of people playing like Rocky Helmet Corv, right? Or a lot of people are playing like Life Orb Corv. And one cool thing about Corviknight is it gets access to Reflect and Light Screen, similar to Mr. Rime. And then you can just go something like Magnet Bomb, and you can go Magnet Bomb and Brave Bird, and just have like good chunk damage. I really like this. Now the way that I'm playing this guy, that you heard it from me first, but like don't copy me, bro, or you could copy me. Akaberry. This guy just sits here with this Akaberry and says like, oh, Heatran, that's fine. I'm gonna get my screens up and leave when I want. I might even KO one other Pokemon on the board if I feel like, oh, you got an Annihilape, like I don't care if there's going to be a Heat Wave or a Magma Storm on the board. I'm gonna soak that damage with my Akaberry, dump truck what I want to dump truck, and then leave when I feel like it after I get up a screen. I think it really just lets you do whatever you want with this guy, and I think it's like super viable because this is a great check to Garchomp. Garchomp can't hit it with Earthquake because we're flying. Dragon Rush doesn't do anything because we steal and have a high defense stat. And then from there, like Garchomp basically, if he's going to be chunking moves at your Corviknight, he's opening himself up to getting hit by other people. So you can actually steal the KO on the Garchomp with one of your other moves, especially like a low moving Magnet Bomb. Like if you put the Magnet Bomb on the Garchomp and he's heading towards it, like Garchomp usually is Sash too. So if they hit them with an Ice Beam, then your Magnet Bomb hits after and you actually can steal those KOs pretty well if you wear that up correctly. I think Corviknight's like actually really good. And I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier because like it's good in a Melmetal. I don't care that you have Thunder Punch. It's not good into Zeraora, but like, I don't care about Zeraora. It's not really that popular. It's usable in the Marshadow for sure. It's usable in the Magearna, who has access to Thunderbolt, but like, if they're gonna go for it, like you don't even get KO'd if you have a light screen up. It's good in a Hoopa. You have the Akaberry here. You don't really want to fight Genesect, but you can pin them with Brave Bird. It's great in a Meloetta. Not against Heatran particularly, but you see like a lot of these guys, especially the more you get into like the Lati Twins and like the sort of Justices, Corviknight's really good into that, and it's good into things like Annihilape. Like, let's take a look at what all these other A tier picks are. Corviknight is good into these. They can't use their ground moves against you, right? Or you have super effective moves against the Annihilape. So I actually really like it, and I think another really popular Pokemon that's very important in the meta right now that we haven't got the chance to talk about yet is going to be Golisopod. And Corviknight's great into Golisopod. So I think like it's a very usable Pokemon that could even probably have like a higher usage depending on like what else people want to do to optimize it. Take a sip of my coffee here, but let me know if you guys agree or disagree so far. All right, here we go. I like to go through this pretty quick. Yeah, I feel like we're doing our best that we can. But let's get back into this. P2, right? P2 and PZ. I think P2 is a little bit better than PZ, honestly. So Porygon-2 gets a lot of really good coverage moves, right? It gets access to like Ice Beam. It gets access to Thunderbolt. It gets access to also like Stab Tri-Attack, which is like really, really good in this format. So like these are all really good, and it gets access to like some screens. I think it gets access to Reflect, not Widescreen, right? So it gets access to Reflect, right? So like I feel like this is how most people are playing P2 right now with a big Eviolite, because again, it's not a fully evolved Pokemon, which means you can Eviolite these stats right here and just go like heavy HP, special attack, and like you're never gonna get one-shotted, right? Yeah, Eviolite P2 does not die. Meanwhile, PZ is an Atom Bomb, right? So this is the more defensive option, and then PZ is like a delete button with like Hyper Beam and Tri-Attack, right? Because like PZ, right, gets access to like the Nasty Plot and stuff like that. So you have access to, like Nasty Plot, you have the Tri-Attack, which again hits 3 times, breaks sashes and stuff like that. You have access to the Ice Beam, and a lot of people still just go Thunderbolt here. I think you can also just put Hyper Beam here. Both these are very, very good, right? Usually these are built with Life Orb or like Sash, or even like Silk Scarf is still viable. Hyper Beam is a lot. It's a really, really strong Hyper Beam. I would probably put P2. I would put it, oh, that's Ceruledge. Not Ceruledge. Ceruledge is going to be a good Pokemon, though. Let's put Ceruledge back where he goes. I'd put P2 in A tier, just because I think it like is a very safe lead. It's probably one of the safest leads in the game. You can lead with it, you can get a screen up if you want, or you can just start pinning things. Even the fighting mons that have coverage, like I don't even think Close Combat Oko's P2, especially if you have like a Reflect or something up like that, or from like another Pokemon. I think it's a very, very solid option. It's always going to be able to do kind of what it wants. And in that mid game, the fact that you have like Bolt Beam plus like Stab coverage with Tri-Attack, really, really good. Very, very usable mon. As far as PZ goes, I don't know if I want to put it in the A tier, because I don't particularly think it's like A tier worthy. I think that it gets traded out with Sashes pretty well. I'm going to put it at the top of the B tier, because I think it takes too much setup to really make this thing work. And you can go for a Hyper Beam, but it's like, you know, like these guys I said, you can go for like 1 for 1. Porygon-Z is going to go 1 for like 1.5, 1 for 2. But like the second something does hit it, it will die, right? The value in PZ is it uses such long range moves like Tri-Attack, Hyper Beam, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, stuff like that. But it will, like a Dragon Rush from like a Swords Dance Garchomp just Okos it, right? Same thing with an Earthquake. So like Sash users trade very well into this thing. But that being said, I think it's viable. I feel like P2 counters Chomp. It does. Yeah, I feel like P2 is like a lot better just because it can sit and soak that damage and counter a lot of those like good Sash leads that are really, really popular in the meta right now. So that's where I would put these guys. We're going to take a look at Zangoose and Seviper. Now, I've used Zangoose. It's pretty underwhelming. Zangoose is cool. Where's my video with Zangoose? It's going to be bit far back, but I used it once. It was right there. I made a video like featuring Zangoose. It was fun. At the same time, I think Zangoose is cool, but it's not that great. It gets access to like, let's sort it by physical, right? it gets access to like close combat. It gets access to like good normal stabs, Ice Punch, Gunk Shot, things like that. But Zangoose kind of has to be built Life Orb to actually still pick up the KOs with those things, and then you're just a Glass Cannon. So you could build it Sash or Orb, but then you're also, similar to like Blaziken, using that Sash and that Orb and taking that spot away from something like a Terrakion or like a Latios that would much more normally utilize those items. Like, why would you use a Zangoose when you could use like a Marshadow, right? So it's not great, but it definitely is usable. I would say Zangoose is probably the very bottom of the C tier, because you will get that KO, and it does get like Swords Dance and other stat boosting moves, but it's like the bottom of bottom C tier, I think. And then Seviper. Seviper's not better. Seviper has like a ground weakness. The only reason why I'm even including it in the list is because like it's paired with the Zangoose, right? But like it can be built physical or special, and it might actually be better built special, because if you're gonna go special, right, at least it gets access to like Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, stuff like that. So like Life Orb Seviper might almost get a KO. 1-for-1 maybe. I think Seviper is probably the worst Pokemon in the list so far. But it's better built special than physical in my opinion. So that's how I would rank those two, but I still feel like they were worth including. So let's see, how much more do we have? We're almost into the legendaries, right? That'd be kind of nice if we can get this done within like the next hour and a half. If you guys are still watching, you know, say hi, let me know. I'm gonna get right into the next phase of what we're doing over here. And we're gonna talk about Melodic. So I think Melodic is more usable than people really give it credit for. So if we were to just rank water types, right? And sort them by special attack, right? If we were just to sort water types by special attack, if we take away like the megas up here, Melodic is actually like one of the higher based ones. Yeah, where is it? Where's Melodic? I can't even find it. It's one of them. Where'd you go? Oh, I gotta sort it by special. Yeah, I sorted by special. Where's Melodic? Right here. So it's right around the same place as like Slowbro as far as like special attack coverage. But it has like a lot more Spadef than something like a Slowbro does. It's probably more comparable to something like a Slowking, but let's take a look at the two, right? They both have 95. Melodic has like about the same defense, the same special attack, and then like more Spadef. So it's like if you're ever using Slowking, you might as well just use like a Melodic. I think Melodic is pretty good because Melodic also in this format gets access to Calm Mind, which I didn't think it used to get. So you have like Hydro, you have Surf, and then you have like Ice Beam. So like if you're used to like that standard like bulky water type, like if you're ever using like a Clawitzer, I think like Melodic is just an upgraded version of Clawitzer for this format. Good base HP, good special attack, good Spadef. This is just a solid Pokemon. The problem with Melodic is they're usually pretty big, and so they're easy targets, so you're gonna get tapped by like every Earthquake, but I like this thing. I think it's definitely usable. More people should probably feature Melodic. I'd like to feature it at some point as well. It's just kind of hard to get them, right? It's kind of hard to get Melodic. That being said, where would I put it? Probably up... I think that just solid water types are like good in this format. I'd probably put it up here. I think it's definitely like an upper B tier mon. Like, let's talk about what it's good into. It can resist a lot of the steel type attacks that are good in the meta. It's good against things like Heatran. It's good against most of the Sword of Justices. Has ice coverage for dragons and other things like that. Like, Melodic is just kind of standard, and it gets Calm Mind if you want to use Calm Mind and stuff like that to even further boost its stats. Like, good, honest, like, water types are always going to be viable, especially in a format dominated by, like, fire types and stuff like that. So let's take a look at Mega Chimecho. So, Chimecho here. Chimecho-Mega, the differences between these two is Chimecho gets a significant boost to its special attack, defense, and special defense. That being said, this guy's still massively underwhelming. You know, we've talked about why Megas aren't really used, and because basically you have to have like a massive resource of Mega energy, and you're basically asking for permission to use that damage steroid that comes with their special attack stat on this guy. So like while you get access to things like Calm Mind, you get access to things like Psychic, I think you also get access, if we sort this by like special, to, you know, a bunch of other unique moves. Normally you'd see like a Ice Beam / like Thunderbolt. This guy doesn't get any of those. It gets access to like Dazzling Gleam, and it's steel typing upon this thing, so it probably gets access to like, doesn't even get Steel Beam, you know, never lucky. Maybe Flash Cannon. Does get Flash Cannon, so like that's okay, but then like it does get Boom Burst, right? So that might be good in actual like VGC games, but it's not good here. So like Megaing to maybe ask for permission to utilize your special attack steroid, and then you gain a ground weakness, like, no, that is not in this format. Definitely not in this format. I think it might be like here. Not gonna be great. I think it's not gonna be great. It's cool, not great. Steel typing is just a death sentence in this format. Weakness to heat waves, magma storms, flamethrowers, earthquakes, earth powers. You don't want that, right? So it's not going to be that hot. So we're going to talk about Staraptor and Mega Staraptor. I think both of these guys are more viable than people give them credit for. So like regular Staraptor's 120, when you Mega, it goes up to 140, and then from there it gains like a 30 defense, 30 on speed death. Both of these are viable. I think Sash base Staraptor is better than people give it credit for with like dual wing beat, right? So you can go like dual wing beat, and it gets access to like cool moves like Blaze Kick and stuff like that too. Like Blaze Kick's good. You can go for like other normal moves and stuff like that. You can still Brave Bird it if you want. I think base Staraptor is probably like a mid-tier Cmon, probably right around here, right? Just Sash base Staraptor, and then Mega Staraptor I think is like super viable because you rock the Brave Bird, you rock like I think it gets access to like Sky Attack and stuff like that too. Like it gets a lot of like valuable options. Like when I tend to run Mega Staraptor, you know, I run it with like Bulk Up, I run it with like Fly, I run it with Brave Bird, and then I run it with Close Combat, which you also stab, right? So it's like really, really solid stuff on this thing. I think it's very, very usable. If you get like a red buff with this thing, it's over. So like, it's one of those few Megas, I think, that is actually viable upon Mega Evolution. It got Blaze Kick, yeah. The problem why you don't need Blaze Kick is because, like, what are you going to be hitting with that? Steals? You mean the thing you can stab Close Combat. If you didn't stab Close Combat, you don't really need Blaze Kick. I'd probably put it, like, right here. I think it's definitely a usable Mega. When you go Mega as well, you lose that normal typing and gain fighting. So it's like so much damage on that. So I think it's a usable Mon. It's the fact that it's like flying typing really helps it out versus a lot of these guys over here. There's just also like a lot less like Thunderbolt coverage in this meta. It's good into Heatran, it's good into Volcanion. So I think it's a usable pick. It's just a little bit of a glass cannon, takes a lot of Mega energy to get its kind of engine going, but it's definitely go like 1 for 1, 1 for 2 whenever you finally bust it out. It's more so similar to any other Pokemon. Like it's a mixture of like Mega Scarm and Zard X in my opinion, because it has a lot of gap closers. It's a flying type, but at the same time, like it's really weak to like fairy coverage and stuff like that. So I think it's usable, but it's, you know, just a high skill ceiling Pokemon. So Tinkaton is up next, a Pokemon that like doesn't really see that much play. Tinkaton can be built a few different ways. You know, it gets that big hammer move, right? It gets the Gigaton Hammer, which like honestly is not that good in this game, in my opinion, especially in this format. Like Heatran, Magearna, Melmetal, no, that's not it. I think this thing's best built as like a dual screens mon. And even then, it's like not great. I tend to build it with like Reflect like this and a Rocky Helmet. That's how I built it. I think there's a few different ways you might be able to make this thing work, but I just don't see it. It doesn't have the base attack to actually do anything. Even if you get like a red buff, you're like not KOing anything. So it's really, really underwhelming in this format. It's one of those Pokemon that if you build it for like VGC, is built around its tech options. Like its good abilities like Mold Breaker, Own Tempo. It would normally get access to like Fake Out and other tools that would help it out in like those sort of situations, but they just don't really work the same in this game. So while it's a cool mon, it's not really that good. And it has that massive ground and fire weakness. Like, I feel bad, but it's right there, bro. I just cannot justify. It cannot get a KO. Like, you're going to be trying to get off screens, doing your best, and then even if you go into something, it's too passive, right? It just does not do any damage. I think it's so weird. Like, it's supposed to be like the predator of Corviknights, but like, it can't even freaking hit Corviknight, bro. Like, it just does not do anything to anything. And it's just really, really rough. So Tinkaton going to be going down for the count over here. Let's take a look at Rotom-Fan. So Rotom-Fan is like a surprisingly good Pokemon in this format, and that's because there's no abilities for these guys, right? So like all the abilities on these Rotoms, they don't have the Levitate, which means the only one that does block ground moves is Fan. And so the way people tend to play this is like Reflect, Light Screen, and then they either go like Nasty Plot or Charge, and then just a Thunderbolt. So this is basically like the new Ampharos without a ground weakness. You're trading out that ground weakness for weakness to Rock and Ice, and that's completely fine because you don't really care. Diet Zapdos Jr., right? It's good. You can go Charge or Nasty Bolt here, I think. So like they're both good. The Charge gives you a basically your next Thunderbolt is double the power, and you get a Spadef boost while you're doing it, and it's a good solid stat line. Like I think it's good. Just go max HP, you know, max special attack, like easy peasy, right? If your team's like really like lacking for that you know, ground defensive pivot, like this is a good Pokemon to add. One of the most solid leads in the game. I think even with all the different legendaries running around, it's still very, very viable. I would put it in the A tier, but but I'd probably put it right here. I think it was better last season in Season 4, but I'd put it right here. I think Marowak is still just a little bit better than this thing, and the fact that Marowak does carry Stone Edge that can crit through those reflex is really, really nice on this guy. So yeah, I think it's a usable Pokemon, but I think like you're starting to see a pattern where like Screens play just isn't as good in these legendary formats as it was in previous formats, at least in my opinion. So it's usable, but not a ton usable. Let's take a look at Rotom-Mow. Rotom-Mow is the only other Rotom that I think is viable, because like this gets Earthquaked, this gets Earthquaked, this gets Earthquaked and hit by fire moves. You don't use the base one. So like the only one that's like also viable is this one, because it takes neutrality to ground moves, and this one you tend to see a lot more aggressive with like Life Orb. So they go like Thunderbolt, Nasty Plot, and then they have access to like Leaf Storm here. And then like the last move here, you just kind of pick any other move. You know, you can do a bunch of other things. Sometimes they have like a Shadow Ball. Sometimes they have like, you know, a secondary electric move, like a Volt Switch or something. And it's just a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes they just go to like Charge here or something else. Like I have seen them also have Charge and the Nasty Plot and just delete things with these two. So like it's an option, but yeah, I think it's usable, but like just barely, right? I would say that's definitely going to be like a D tier mon, but like the top of the D tier. Right? It's usable, but like just barely, right? Because it still has that fire weakness, which you can't really play around or get around. So let's talk about Ceruledge and Armarouge. Now, I think in any other format, like Armarouge is better. I'm talking about like Season 4, Armarouge was so much better. Meteor Beam, Solar Beam, Armarouge is still a very viable pick, but Ceruledge is like a really good honest check to Magearna. Magearna cannot deal with Ceruledge very well. Like Magearna does not have the ground coverage or like the water coverage or the ghost coverage really required to deal with Ceruledge. So like Ceruledge is a really cool pick right now. You get access to like Bitter Blade or Flare Blitz if you want to restore health. These tend to be built either Sash or Life Orb. And then you get access to like Phantom Force for gap closing. You have Close Combat for coverage against like other steals and stuff like that. And you just SD, right? This is a solid set. Like this is actually just a really, really viable Pokemon. Magearna gets Shadow Ball, but they don't carry it, right? They don't carry the Shadow Ball like ever. Like it gets those coverages, but it doesn't do it. And then like it doesn't even guarantee Oko here unless you have like you know, with a good coverage. Also, yeah, it also gets like Solar Blade too, if like you want to use Solar Blade and stuff like that. So yeah, I think this is a very, very usable Pokemon. I think it's going to only go up in usage as far as the rest of Season 5 goes, because like it's good into Melmetal in some situations. It's good into Zeraora. It can fight Marshadow. It's great into Magearna. It's good against Hoopa. It's usable against Volcanion. We don't really care about Earth Power from Volcanion. You have Close Combat for Heatran, good into Meloetta and Genesect. Like the Pokemon that are the problems, it's good into. It's only Pokemon that kind of struggles with is like Garchomp. And that's if you're like, just don't fight Garchomp, bro. Like, gotta Phantom Force that EQ, right? So that's the idea here. But I think it's a very, very cool Pokemon. Where would I put Ceruledge? It's definitely gonna be up here somewhere. Probably right behind Marowak. I rank this guy very, very highly. So yeah, I really like what Ceruledge brings to the table as like an aggressive pick in this format. I think it's very, very usable. And let's talk about Armarouge. Now, Armarouge is built very similarly, right? So Armarouge here is built with like Meteor Beam, Solar Beam, and then a lot of people tend to just go like Heat Wave. And they like Heat Wave over like Fire Blast and Flamethrower just because it's a cone, which is better than just like a single target thing like that. And then a lot of people just go Psychic here, right? I think it's just standard, like very, very standard. They tend to Life Orb it. I've seen Sash also as well. I've also seen AV running around, a little bit of Shucka Berry running around. This is a standard Pokemon, great special attack stat. It's still definitely usable. It just sucks that it has that big weakness to ground, right? Ground is just the problem for it in this format, a little bit more than it was in Season 4. So I think Armarouge is very similar to like Porygon, where like you might get like 1 KO, but like that's it, right? Your party's over after you get that 1 KO. So I think it's usable, but Ceruledge is definitely a little bit better in this format. So let's go into Dozo. Now, in tournament play, Dondozo Tatsugiri on the same team is actually banned in a lot of online tours. So you can use Dozo and you can use Tatsu, and I think Tatsu by itself is actually a very usable Pokemon. We're going to talk about that in a second here. Especially Mega Tatsu, also very viable, but Dozo and Tatsu combined are going to not really be legal for tournament play because, you know, when you use Dondozo and Tatsugiri, you can go for the Commander boost, which is still in the game. Like, let's plug in a Tatsu here. So this ability is still built into the game. You have the Tatsu go into the Dondozo. If they're both in the same team, you get a +1 Omni boost to all your stats, and you kind of just like wreck people with like Earthquakes, Ice Fangs. Normally what people like to do is they set like a screens user, right? So they'll have like, we'll have like that Corviknight or something, right? Or like a Magearna that has like dual screens or something. They'll set dual screens with like Reflect, Light Screen, and then they'll go into the Dozo, and they'll have like an Assault Vest Dozo behind dual screens, and they'll just like roll people over with like all of the different like, you know, coverage moves that Dozo gets. Like this is just a lot of damage, right? So it's like all this stuff just does a ton of damage. You know, you get the idea here. So that's how people like to play Dozo, and it's really obnoxious and not really great for tournament play because you can kind of just grief specific players with this stuff. So I think like Chills and the Moonlit Showdown and the Yabber Cups have kind of banned this combo. But that being said, if you want to play it on ranked, it's super good. It's super good. I would definitely put it at least in the B tier. I'm probably going to put it at the bottom of A for now because it has the right coverage. You can't really see him over there, but he's definitely there. So he's going to be at the A tier. I think Tatsugiri as a Pokemon, though, is actually really usable. 120 base special attack is actually, you know, we were sorting things based off like water types. So what we're looking at is those water types sorting by special attack. We take all the Megas and Legendaries out of the equation. Only it and Clawitzer have that 120, right? So it's basically the same as a Clawitzer, and it gets access to like Hydro, but it also gets access to like Draco, right? So it's like, it's actually super usable as like a Sash user, in my opinion. It's also really tiny. So people were comparing it to like a, what is that Pokemon? Stunfisk from previous formats. You're able to avoid a lot of damage with this guy, a lot of good AoE, and still check the right things. So I really do like Tatsu. It's really solid, and I think we're starting to see it like pop up in tournament play as well. I'd probably put it in the B tier. I think it's probably right about here, just base form Tatsu. And then Mega Tatsu, I don't particularly like Mega Tatsu. So Mega Tatsu is, you know, Mega Tatsu also can't go inside the Dondozo. That's kind of crazy. But the difference is you're only getting a 15 boost to your special attack. You're getting a lot more bulk, but like you could just use Life Orb Tatsu. It's one of those situations similar to Scovillain where it's not really worth the investment at all. I think like in any situation, it's not really worth the investment at all. So it's probably around here, probably right around here at the bottom, like the top of D tier, but still the bottom of the list. Just because like it takes too much resources to actually get that thing off. I've tried to make it work a few times. Best case scenario, you get like a Draco Meteor off, and like you could do that with just a Life Orb Break or a Tatsu, or Sash Tatsu in my opinion. Talking about Leipard next. Now Leipard is a Pokemon that probably shouldn't even be on this list because we're talking about viable Pokemon, but I did make a video with Leipard. It was a lot of fun, and it performed better than I thought that it would. So it's right here. Physical Sweeper Leipard. I paired it with Mawile and Zard, and I was like pleasantly surprised by what this thing actually brought to the table. So like it gets usable attack. That's on the bottom of usable, right? And I Life Orbed it, right? And the cool thing about it is it gets access to like Ice Fang. I think it gets access to like a lot of good physical moves. First Impression's an option. Gunk Shot's an option. Gets access to like Knockoff. I think it also did get access to Swords Dance, but I don't remember. There's the Swords Dance, right? So it's like it gets access to those options plus like Knockoff, and like I think it even gets like Dig. So it's like it's barely usable. The fact that it gets a good move set on like a pretty terrible mon means you can do stuff with it. It also gets Seed Bomb, I think. So I think actually, I don't know if I used the Swords Dance, but I think I just used the Seed Bomb. And I think what I did is I just got a bunch of red buffs and I just like dump truck people with it. It was really cool right at the start of Season 5. And I still think it is kind of usable. But that being said, it's probably in the D tier, probably right about here. It's a cool Pokemon, maybe better than Houndstone. Similar idea where it's taking a popular item away from something else. Like if you're using Leipard with like a Focus Sash or a Life Orb, you're not using those items on one of your legendaries or mythicals, and you're kind of just leaving your team, you know, honestly incomplete for like tournament play and stuff like that. We're going to go into the next little guy that I want to feature here, and that's going to be Musharna. I think Musharna is one of those Pokemon that like, I wish it was just like a little bit better because it's one of my all-time favorites, but at the same time, it's best built as like a screens user. So Musharna here is similar to like Mr. Rime in that it gets like Light Screen, it gets Reflect. Yo, thank you for the follow as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping by. It gets dual screens, but then after that, it just doesn't really do that much. 107 is higher than people think that is. Yo, thank you for the bits too. I appreciate it, my friend. Happy to have you here. It gets access to like Psychic and like Moonblast. But like, honestly, even if you have like a damage boosting item, it's not really going to be doing that much damage. So I think it's cool. It's one of my favorites. Like 116, 85, 95 is good for a screens user, but you're very reactive. And I think against like Melmetals, you know, Heatrans, Garchomps, you're kind of up the creek without a paddle here because you can't really dictate play with it. It's one of my all-time favorite mons, but it's definitely just kind of mid. I'm going to put it probably right here in the bottom of D because like it's cool. I think it was the first Pokemon I featured once we got like the Mega Dimension DLC, but like it's really underwhelming. Again, screen users are so hard to use in this format, and having a weakness to first impression Golisopod, one of the best leads in the game as a screen setter, is almost a death sentence. I think the only one that can get away with that might be Mr. Rime, because it has a super effective move into the Golisopod being freeze dry. So it's rough to use Musharna, one of my favorites, but it's not going to be that great. So let's talk about Goldango. We're getting near the end, right? We've done more Pokemon than we have left, I think. So Goldango here. Goldango is great. You can build it Life Orb, you can build it Shuckleberry, Occaberry, Sash. It gets access to like Nasty Plot. It gets access to like Flash Cannon, which is really good on it. It gets access to Steel Beam here, which is really good, and like Shadow Ball, right? This guy gets like the full package, right? I think you want to pick one of these two, the Steel Beam and the Flash Cannon. I think most pro players that play in tournaments pick the Flash Cannon and they go Thunderbolt here. I was also playing Goldango recently with Surf, and I really liked it. I was like, ooh, that is nice, right? I think it's so good. Yeah, I just talked about it. I go with Surf here off like the Life Orb. I really like this thing. I think it has the right defensive typing. It's one of the only steel types, it's not a legendary in this format, that says like, oh, like I don't care that I have a weakness to ground because like you're probably not going to be able to hit me with an EQ, right? So like I think that it's a really usable mon. I think it's at least A tier. I think it's better than Dozo. I think it's better than Corv, better than these two. I like it more than Marowak. Is it better than Porygon though? Yes. Yes, it is. It also gets Make It Rain too, which we didn't even talk about. I'd put it here. I think that's a fair place to put it. I think Ape and Swampert still kind of check it just a little bit too hard because it doesn't have the best coverage. It has a weakness to fire and ground. You think it's better than Swampert? I don't think that it is. But it's also one of, if not the highest, like skill ceiling non-legendaries in the format. Like if you're using it correctly, like it's one of the best partners for things like Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur is weak against Steel. It's weak against Fighting. You know, it has weaknesses against Fairy. Goldango is a perfect pivot for that. So it's like it's one of those mons that can like Swiss Army knife solve a lot of like other high skill ceiling Pokemon's problems and give you matchup like experience that you would not normally have. Goldango's really good, but I think for the most part, putting it at the upper top of A tier is good. I think it's good, but I don't think it's as good as Swampert. I think Swampert's busted, and I'll die on that hill. And we're gonna talk about Sawk and Throh here. Holy moly, Throh is a weird mon, right? Throh is weird. If you look at this stat line, it's not even bad. 120, 100, 85, 85. Let's compare it to something like a Pangoro, another Pokemon that is like actually usable. So like Pangoro is like 95, 78, 71. Throh is like pretty bulky, 120, 85, 85. Like an Assault Vest Throh will actually not get KO'd by things. And if you have like a stat boosting move, if you wanted to use like a bulk up set instead of an AV set, you definitely could. But or you can grab a red buff. Like it gets Ice Punch, it gets Drain Punch, it gets sorry, it doesn't get Drain Punch. It gets Earthquake, it gets Brick Break, right? These are good moves. This is a usable Pokemon. No matter what people might like to think, this Pokemon is actually usable, which is just really cool because I think it's like definitely slept on. But that being said, I think it's better than Sawk in this form, which is unfortunate because I really do like Sawk. I had a video the other day that used Sawk, and it was fun using it, but it's not that great, right? So I think Throh is cool, but it's probably like a C tier mon at best. I think that's probably about like right here at best. That's where I would probably put it. And then Sawk is basically the same thing, but a little bit more aggressive, right? So Sawk can only be built like a couple ways. Sawk gets like, you know, the more aggressive set here, has a higher base attack stat. So you have like the Ice Punch for the Garchomp. You can build it with like Sash or Life Orb here. I tend to build it Sash with like Close Combat, Earthquake here, stuff like that. So just a little bit more aggressive variance and you're trading correctly. So it's like a really bad Blaziken without a secondary stab. So like I would put Sawk just slightly above like the Zangoose. I would put these guys together because they're basically the same set. But the fact that they only have that single stab means they don't really have the coverage to like leverage advantage versus a lot of the other legendaries. And they're both very item reliant, being like Sash, Life Orb, AV, stuff like that. So like it's cool, but they're not great. They're just little guys. They're having a good time. Now let's talk about an underwhelming pick, or not underwhelming pick, a sleeper pick here is going to be Flamigo, right? Flamigo here with either Life Orb or Sash, being a flying type is really good, being able to block those EQs. It gets access to like Brave Bird, which is a good move, gets access to Close Combat, which is a good move, and then it also gets access to Triple Axle for Dragon coverage. This is sick. I think it also gets access to like Swords Dance. It gets a bunch of like weird physical moves, right? Sort of by physical. It gets the Brick Breaks, it gets knockoffs, liquidation, lunge. Like, these are all really... Waterfall, people just don't expect it to get this coverage, right? I really like the triple axle coverage, but, like, this is definitely, like, a usable mon. Did I do Mabostiff? Not yet. Mabostiff is right there. So we have not done Mabostiff yet, but I think Flamigo is very good. And it has, like, a usable special attack... Sorry, usable physical attack stat, I think 115. Very viable. I like it with Sash, and, like... in these sort of like really aggressive stats, sometimes I take out the Brave Bird for dual Wing Beat, right? I think it's a very usable mon. Very good coverage into things like Garchomp, being able to break those Sash Garchomps with Triple Axle. I don't know if I want to put it in like A, but I think it's like a B tier mon. I think it's like Blaziken better. I'd put it right here. I was really surprised to see this thing be this good. I think the Triple Axle change really helps it out and gives it a lot of coverage that it wouldn't normally have. So let's talk about Golisopod and Mega Golisopod here. Golisopod is actually like one of the best elites in the game because it gets access to that big stab first impression. Remember, first impression, if you plus move it, is going to be an auto crit. So you can't use that at the very start of the game, but like mid game, it's going to be broken. Gets access to stab waterfall, gets access to drill run, right? This is kind of cracked. And then like a lot of people just go leech life here for like secondary bug after your first impression's blown and a little bit of healing. Good into dark types and stuff like that. Great stat line. Remember, it doesn't have the emergency exit in this game, so it's able to just sit in the game and just like do whatever it wants and just dump truck as many things as possible. This is a cracked stat line that like is basically like a legendary level stat line, and is so good. I think having water typing too is just very good, right? I think it's really good. I think it's better non-mega in my opinion. So where does it go? It's better than Dozo, it's better than Corv, better than all these. I think it's better than Marowak. I would put Golisopod up here. I don't think it's an S tier mon. I think it's just a good mon. You're starting to see how I highly value these like water types because like I think fire coverage is so good. And while Golisopod takes neutral damage to fire, a lot of the fire Pokemon in the meta do not like dealing with stab waterfall, first impression, drill run, gap closers, stuff like that. Golisopod does kind of shove them down a little bit. So like if you're using like a Delphox, you're going to get one-shotted by this guy. Right? It's just the first impression is going to one-shot through neutral. I think it's a really underrated mon. I think most teams should use this in both ranked and tournament play. Golisopod's good. Now, Mega Golisopod, when you Mega Evolve it, it gets a little bit different. It gets 25 more attack, 35 more defense, 30 more special defense, and it gains Steel typing, which again, we've already talked about, is not good. Actually, like, losing your water typing stab is not good. Yes, you have, like, only weakness to fire now, but at the same time, like, every team has, like, 1 to 2 fire moves on it. So it's like, I don't really think I like Mega Golisopod as much. I'm not afraid of it. It also gains like a neutrality to ground, which like you don't even want that. But it's in the B tier somewhere, right? I think Mega Golisopod might be like right here in the B tier. Because like it's better than Sceptile. It's better than, like it's base form Golisopod. It just kind of gets like but basically you're losing your life orb, which sucks. But then like at the same time you have like a get out of jail free card against that one move if you are like winning enough with your Golisopod to go Mega. I think it's a usable pick. It's as far as Mega evolutions go, it's definitely one of the winners in this format. But Megapod handles Magearna better, if that counts for anything. Yeah, it does. It does. It's just like you have to get the drill run off, right? So, and I don't even know if you one-shot unless you have like a stat boosting move. These are tend to built more with like Swords Dance. So they're built more specifically like without that first impression. So they have like the Swords Dance, they have the Leech Life, they have like, I think do they get Magnet Bomb? No, they get, do they not get Steel coverage very well? I don't remember. It gets Iron Head. Ugh. Sometimes you see the drill run obviously, so it's like these moves for sure, and then maybe roll. You guys see rollout on it? I don't know if I see rollout that often. Rollout is great coverage. It is, but like, I don't know if I would see rollout. I use rollout. I don't know if I would use rollout on this guy. It's not really my cup of tea. Let's sort it by like physical. I would probably think about, I'd probably still just use Waterfall, honestly. It's good gap closer. Knockoff's acceptable. I'd probably still use Waterfall. Just because that's a good gap closer. It's good neutral damage and a lot of things. Yeah, I think that that's fine. You know, you could say rollout, but it's hard to say. I don't know if I would use that. I think that if we're talking specifically about like a Steel Golisopod, I think you can actually just outvalue other ones. Leave Life, Waterfall, Roll. Yeah, I think you're just built different. I think that that's okay. Let's talk about the little ghost mummy guy over here. We got two forms of this guy. So the Cofagrigus right here. So we got Cofagrigus, which like that's a good stat line. Like honestly, 95 base special attack on those fat defenses is actually usable. Being a solo ghost type means it's only weak against a few different things. The problem with this guy is he doesn't have good coverage, right? It gets access to like, you know, Giga Drain, Energy Ball, Psychic, Shadow Ball, but like that's it. So it's like when I built this guy, I tend to go like Assault Vest and just kind of like sit around and try and steal KOs. It's a cool mon. It has a really cool shiny, but it's not really that viable, right? So like where would I put it? It's very similar to Macharned, where it just doesn't have any aggressive typing. It's better than some of these. It's better here. It's better than Mega Chimecho, but it's not as good as Houndstone. And I would say that doesn't that is not the same case for the Runerigus, because Runerigus actually gets a lot of good coverage. Right, so Runerigus gets stab on ground, and now we already talked about how valuable that is, and it can be built physical, right? So you can actually just go Earthquake with this thing. So EQ baby, and we sort of by physical here. So this guy has like a much better moveset on physical, right? So you have like knockoff, you have access to like Shadow Claw. I think it might also get Phantom Force in this game. It's not really coming up here, but I think it's like usable. It also gets access to Fissure, like Stab Fissure, Phantom Force right there. We were talking about it. Definitely more usable for this guy. 95 is definitely usable if you want to go like Life Orb, and then like it has great bulk. Like 145, 105, even it's on a 58 base, like it's definitely usable. So I think that like you could make that sort of work. So it's a little bit more viable. I'd probably put it probably up here, to where like ground is just good. Ground coverage is good. Being able to check Heatrans, Magirnas, Terrakions, Cobalions, stuff like that. Like it's worth it, you know, just kind of go with it. All right, and we have Cryogonal. Is that how this guy's name is said? It's the evil snowflake, right? So it's similar to Mr. Rime, right? It gets like very similar stats to Mr. Rime, to where you have like Light Screen, Reflect, and you have access to like Ice Beam and Freeze Dry, right? That's kind of what this guy does. The issue with this guy is as like, let's compare it to Mr. Rime. So who has more HP? 80, 80, same. Defense, 75, 50, not as good. Mr. Rime, 110, 95. Mr. Rime, 100 versus 135. The issue with this is like you're going to be eating mostly physical attacks and you have a 50 base right there. And then like speed stats don't really matter. So Mr. Rime's obviously better, but they have the same role. So this is like a budget Temu Mr. Rime. So it's going to go probably in the C tier. And I think it's probably going to go right around, I think it's like in between the two fighting guys. Because like remember, screens are not as good. You get dump trucked by Earthquake. Like if they get the jump on you, even if you have like a Reflect, you're going to get KO'd by like a lot of like I think a +1 Garchomp, like Earthquake, would actually KO you through Reflect, which is ridiculous. Because you have to still go a lot of special attack when using these guys. So it's not like you can get away with like this. Because then you actually won't get the KOs with your Freeze Dries. So like you actually still have to go like this, which means you're getting absolutely dump trucked by like physical attacks in my opinion. And like a lot of the meta is physical attacks. Also, unlike Mr. Rime, who has a neutrality to fighting, you have a weakness to fighting, right? And that's like not gonna be that good. So while you have a good Spadef, you don't really care about like your Spadef because you're taking super effective damage from like Steel and Fire anyway. So those are really common special attacking types. So I think it's a cool mon. Get it? Cool because it uses ice moves, but not as good as Mr. Rime in my opinion. So here we go. We're getting into the meat and potatoes here. We'll talk about Mega Absol-Z. Now, I think Mega Absol-Z is the ultimate, like, perfectly polished version of, like, a 1-for-1 type mon. So we got Absol. And we're going to see all the different Mega Absols here. So, like, there's base Absol 130. When you go to Absol-Z, it gets a boost to its attack stat. And basically, it's just a massive glass cannon, right? And it gets access to, it gains ghost typing, so it loses that fighting weakness. It gets access to, like, you know, Phantom Force. It gets access to like Play Rough for dragons. It gets access to like setup moves like Swords Dance. It gets access to like knockoff. I think it's a good mon, but like you're usually going to get 2 KOs out of it. You're going to set up, you're going to KO one thing, you're going to KO something else, and you're going to get tapped. The cool thing about Mega Absol-Z is because it's a Z evolution, it has like a lot less lag on its moves. It goes into its animations a lot faster than a lot of other things. So you can basically out trade with even like Sash users with this thing. I think it's definitely usable. It takes a lot of work, but like these Z evolutions are very, very good. It's probably right about, I would put it right here. I'd put it right there in like the middle, the upper middle of A tier, just because I think it takes a lot of resources to use, and it still does not break a lot of like the big steel types. It gets access to like close combat and stuff like that for Heatran, but like Volcanion, even Garchomp, Magearna, like they're going to be able to soak the damage and just reply back. Like it takes a lot. Like, it's definitely a win more mon. If you're like already winning and like crushing your lob and you have like 3 KOs and you go into an early mega with this thing, you will like steamroll the game, right? But if you're playing it all from behind, this thing's not going to be able to break the things that actually let you back in the game. So I like it. It's good. Like, it feels bad to say like, oh yeah, it's A rank and talk about it underwhelmingly, but it just takes so much like correct team building and setup to get this thing into a situation where it can carry that I don't particularly think it's like amazing in this game. Crabominable. Mega Crabominable is fun, but not great. So Crablad over here, Mega. You see the differences. It gains a boost to its attack, massive boost to defense, and Spadef. It's cool. It gets access to like, you know, Icicle Spear, I think is what most people tend to use on this thing. Big close combat. Obviously gets access to like bulk up, I think, and stuff like that. And then like, I think Earthquake is what most people use. This is standard, right? Very, very standard. If you can get this guy to Mega, he's kind of okay. He's definitely better than like a lot of the other Megas we've talked about. Fighting ice coverage has that weakness to ice and fire, but he has good coverage into a lot of like the ground mons. So I definitely think it's in like the B tier. I think it's better than Sceptile. I'd probably put it probably just better than Sceptile, but not as good as things like, you can't really see what we're doing here. I'd put it right there. Let's look at it right there. So it's better than Sceptile, but not as good as things like Marowak and Tatsu. Offensively, Mega Crab is scary as hell. Defensively, easy to handle. Yeah, so even though it gains all that bulk, like something like close combat, I guess you could also put like Drain Punch here, right? It's viable, it's usable, but like you will one tap this thing more often than you think, even though this has a good stat line. So it's a lot of resources, but I'd personally rather use things like Staraptor in my opinion. They're very similar. Or like a Mega Bax. I think I'd almost always rather use a Mega Bax than a Mega Crab. Let's take a look at Palossand. Now, I have a Palossand team that's going to be coming out in just a couple days here. I think Palossand is so slept on. So Palossand gets moves that like most people don't really know, right? So it gets access obviously to like Calm Mind, right? And then it gets, I think it's Calm Mind. No, it gets Nasty Plot, right? It gets Nasty Plot. It might also get Calm Mind in this game. I don't know why it said that. I think it does get Calm Mind. But the way I'm going to play it is Earth Power, right? Earth Power stabbed on this thing. Shadow Ball stab, right? And then what I'm going to do with this thing is I'm going to go Ancient Power for like coverage versus flying. And then like if you use plus move Ancient Power, it gets a boost to all your stats. And then Shore Up. Now, Shore Up is different from Recover and Roost. And when you use, I believe if you use a plus move Shore Up, you actually restore like more health than you do with the other ones. There's like a list somewhere that shows like what the effects of all of the plus moves do. And plus move Shore Up, I think restores like a significant amount of health. Normally our covers and, you know, other healing things like Synthesis are not viable in this game. This guy's different, and when you pair it with like a plus move from like an Ancient Power to getting all your boosts to get all the stat boosts, this thing actually like cooks. Like I'm gonna be playing it probably with like Citrus. I think this is gonna be really viable. I have a video coming out in a couple days. I still have to record it, but very, very unique typing, and like all you're really doing is just farming for Earth Power KOs. KOing the Heatrans, KOing the Magearnas. Like you have Shadow Ball for things like Dango and Ape that might be just running around. I think it's going to be very usable. And this stat line's not terrible. 100 base special attack, 110 defense, 85, 75. Definitely a usable mon. So hopefully I can get some big KOs with this thing. Very, very like underappreciated mon in this format. And like Ground Ghost is actually just like really cool typing. So that's where I'm going to be putting this guy. I'm going to put him in the B tier. I'm probably going to put him at the very bottom of the B tier. Because, like, this is all still theory for me. I've never seen anyone else really use Palossand. And, like, going into something with, like, Shore Up and, you know, plus Ancient Power, it might be a, like, very resource-intensive team. But I think it could definitely be usable. So those are my thoughts on Palossand. Let's take a look at Mabostiff, right? Mabostiff is weird. You know, it's normally a Pokemon that's built around its abilities. 120 base attack is decent. I think realistically, you want to be Life Orbing this thing if you're going to be playing it, very similar to like Houndstone. And then as far as physical coverage, right, it gets decent moves. It gets access to like Crunch and stuff like that. Nasty Plot, Life Orb, Palossand. Recently, it's okay. Yeah, I think Palossand's good. It's very similar to like Stunfisk as well. The cool thing about Mabostiff is it gets the Elemental Fangs, it gets Lunge, Outrage, Play Rough, Psychic Fang, Seed Bomb. It's like everything that Leipard does. This does that, but better. So remember, we ranked Leipard down here. I would say Mabostiff is just like a slightly better version of that because it gets all the same elemental, fangs and stuff like that. Trailblaze is actually a lot of fun to use. Lunge, Outrage, Play Rough, Psychic Fangs, Wild Charge. It's much better than the Leipard. It gets much more, aggressive coverage off a 120 base attack, which is definitely usable. I'd probably put it right here above Sceptile and like right around the middle of C tier. I think it's definitely like a usable Mon. But at the same time, because you're orbed, you'd much rather be using that orb somewhere else. You still have like massive weaknesses to stuff. Like if you do go into a move and you're like stuck in an animation doing something, you get one tapped by an earthquake and like a heat wave or something. You will get one tapped, especially if you've already taken a couple ticks of your orbs. So I think it's usable, but at the same time, it's a 1-for-1 Pokemon, which is basically like all the other Pokemon in this tier. Let's take a look at Mega Lucario-Z. Now the difference between Mega Lucario-Z and regular Mega Lucario and other things like that is Mega Lucario-Z has like that special attack boost. It's a special attacker variant. You can build it with Calm Mind or Nasty Plot. It's completely up to you. I think most people tend to go with the Calm Mind just because it gets a little bit of value there. They go like Aura Sphere. They go things like Flash Cannon or Steel Beam. It does get access to both. And then as far as like special goes, I think when I'm building this guy, I think what I'm doing is going like double dipping, like finding a second fighting move. Like I think what I'm doing is like Focus Blast in this. That's how I'm technically playing this guy right now when I play it, because I want multiple fighting coverages to be able to like punish Heatrans and Melmetals and things like that. But very, very good special coverage. 164 is very high, right? And it's similar to Mega Absol-Z. It can use these moves with very low cooldown. It gets into its animations very quickly. It's going to be a very, very usable Pokemon. I do think Mega Absol-Z is much better, though, because, again, Lucario comes pre-packed with weaknesses to fire and ground. You're starting to see a pattern like that. Maybe we should have started with Heatran and, like, set the precedence that like fire and ground are kind of everywhere, especially because people are starting to use Protect now. On Lucario, I think you could use Protect if you want, but, like, I think that Lucario is pretty, like, not as good as Absol. It's definitely like a B tier mon for me. I would probably put it... Mega Lucario-Z is better than Golisopod. I think it's better than Blaziken. I think it's better than Flamigo, but I'd probably put it right here. It's definitely usable, right? By far, like, very usable. Upper B, but it doesn't break. It's not better than Armarouge and, like, Porygon. It's better than some of these other mons, because like one of the things about it is it takes so many resources to make it work, but you will get like 1 or 2 KOs off of it. Having double fighting is because people are using Protect. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I like it a lot. So I think Mega Lucario-Z is definitely usable. Not as good as Absol, but definitely a viable pick. So let's talk about Glimmora, both the Mega and the Standard. Now, Glimmora is a really cool Pokemon, right? If you take a look at both the Glimmoras here, what you gain for going Mega is 20 boost on your special attack stat. And whenever you're not gaining like a 30 or 40 boost to your stats, you could just use a Life Orb variant of your unevolved form, in my opinion. You don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to have all the Mega energy to do that. So I think that regular Glimmora is going to be better than Mega Glimmora because you're not really getting like that much stats. This is going to be a better Pokemon in like, competitive VGC and singles battles. But base form Glimmora is really cool because it gets that Stab Meteor Beam, which is really good. And you get that big Solar Beam. Like, this is good coverage right here. And then like a Sludge Bomb or like a Sludge Wave. Good usable Pokemon off like a Life Orb. Very much so like this, right? I think this is good. You said you've been using Glimmet. That's a cool Pokemon too. The unevolved form is definitely usable. But like, I think this is usable for sure. I think Life Orb is going to be better on this thing. You have that weakness to like Psychic and Ground, obviously. But like, you also get access if you wanted to use like Energy Ball too. Not Energy Ball. I mean, you have Solar Beam here. I think it's good coverage. Gets access to like Dazzling Gleam, Flash Cannon. You can set screens with it too. It can be a good dual screens user. It gets Spiky Shield, which is a special type of Protect in this format. It's a very good Pokemon. I think people are sleeping on Glimmora, and there's a few people in the tournament scene that use it pretty decently. I think it's in the B tier. I think I would probably end up putting Glimmora probably right about here. I think base form Glimmora is definitely viable. Like the upper part of the B tier, very, very good. And then for the Mega, because it takes so many resources to use, I think it's probably right about here. I think it's better than base form Tatsu because like it can be good. And what you can actually, it's one of the few Pokemon that like, since you are so weak to like Earthquake, you can actually use the Mega as like a get out of jail free card and just kind of block the Earthquake that one turn from like a Garchomp. And then if they don't have secondary ground coverages, like they can't really hit you very well. So I think it's like usable. It's one of the few Pokemon that can utilize that Mega evolution defensively as well as offensively and still have a lot of value. And I think it's just a very, very, like, cool Pokemon. More people should mess around with Mega Glimmora. It's a lot better than people give it credit for. Let's take a look at Mega Golurk. Now, I recently made a video with Mega Golurk here. right here. Fisher Golurk, I used Fly as well. It was definitely a bit of a meme set. I think Golurk is probably the best Fisher user in the format because, like, if we were to sort Fisher and talk about what learns Fisher, sort of about, like, attack, other than, like, Excadrill, like, it has, like, the highest base attack on the Mega, and since we're not ranking that right now, I think it's really, really good. So this will one-shot. You will one-shot Garchomp. You will one-shot everything. I don't think I didn't one-shot anything that I actually made connections with on the Fisher. So it's cool, but it's definitely a meme. You know, you get access to, like, you know, Fisher, Earthquake, and then, like, from there, you have, like, Phantom Force, right? And then you could also go, like, bulk up, I think, on this guy. Like, it doesn't even get bulk up, duh. I think, like, I just picked, like, another, like, random move to, like, have coverage on. But, like, I think I might have had, like, Heavy Slam or something. But it gets Ice Punch. I think I had Ice Punch just for Garchomp coverage. It's a solid mon. Good attack stat. Decent bases. This is very similar to, like, Crabominable, but, like, more ground-centric. So I would probably put Golurk probably, like, here. I think it's definitely usable. It takes so many resources to work, but, like, you can get the right coverage off. Similar to, like, Palossand, like, Ground Ghost is a really, really good offensive and defensive typing. It's just the use, like, a lot of these Megas are just kind of just in the B tier. They're a little bit better than usable. And when you're winning, like, you're definitely going to win more. They definitely make the games a lot more fun to use. Mega Golurk's so fun. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. It also gets access to, like, Fly and other fun moves like that, so I think it's a really cool mon. So now the only mons that we really have left to rank are all of, like, the really good legendaries plus, like, Bax and its Mega. Now, if we're going to be ranking Baxcalibur here, I think that Baxcalibur in its base form is going to be better than Mega Bax, just because Mega Bax is, you know, asking for permission, you know, having to require that full Mega meter to even utilize what this is. You could just use a Life Orb, right? So it gets higher defense and higher SPDF, but at the same time, you're still going to get one-tapped by, like, Floor Cannon or, like, Dragon Rush or something like that. So it's like Mega Bax is usable, but I do think regular Baxcalibur is better. People actually tend to build this guy with Sash more often than anything else. And it has, like, that Icicle Spear, which is going to be good. So it's like Icicle Spear, if I can freaking type right here. So Icicle Spear, they have, like, Glaive Rush if they want. Sometimes you actually see them cut the Glaive Rush, which is a good move for just a Dragon Rush, which is just, like, really, really standard. And then from there, like, you just have, like, Earthquake coverage is still really solid. They usually pick any sort of filler in this last move, but I think it's a very, very good Pokemon. I was surprised at how well Baxcalibur performed, and I think Baxcalibur is probably right here. I think Baxcalibur is very usable. It has, like, really good coverage, and it is a decent check to Garchomp because, like, Icicle Spear can break those sashes. Very, very, like, usable mon. It's probably the best Icicle user in the format. And at the same time, like, Mega Bax, it's similar to, like, Glimmora, where it's not as good. I don't know if I'd put it in the A rank, because, like, you do kind of need your Sash on that thing. I'd probably put it at the tippy top of B tier for Baxcalibur, right? I think that's probably a good place to put it. I don't think it's good enough to be in the A tier, just because it takes so much, like, setup to really make that thing work. And Baxcalibur is more aggressive and wants to be used early on in the meta, so, like, early on in the game. So, like, I just don't really see a situation where, like, it can actually be utilized as, like, a checkmate. Like, if you're building this thing with, like, setup moves with, like, dual screens as, like, a Mega Chestnut, I don't think it's as good. I think that, like, you really want to be leveraging Baxcalibur as, like, an aggressive pick all early game, and then going into, like, your Mega Legendaries to, like, close the game out. So, like, if you do that and you're holding a Mega Stone, you're basically playing itemless, like, boneless Baxcalibur. It's not as good, right? It's not as good as a checkmate piece, in my opinion. And if you're going to go into the resources of using, like, a Mega non-legendary dragon, you would just use Mega Garchomp, in my opinion. So we got the Lati twins here. Let's rank both, like, Lati and its Megas respectively. We've already really realistically talked about this, but these Megas are just, like, asking for permission to utilize their stat boost. I know I harp on that so much, but, like, let's pull up Latias, right? Why would you use Mega Latias in a format where, like, you're getting 30 base, you know, defense, 20 base SPDF, you're getting 30 base special attack, but, like, you can do everything that this thing does with just a Latias that has, like, a Life Orb and not have to wait to get a full Mega Bar to do it. It's just more efficient to utilize your Life Orb. Now, if you really want to feature this thing, you could use Mega Latias as, like, a checkmate piece in the back behind screens, and then there's value in getting that extra bulk, but it's not as viable. Like, if you want to do that, that's a completely different team comp that's made specifically to center around a Latias, which means you have to have the right teammates. And it's just a lot harder to set up, which means it's lower ranked on the tier list. That being said, Latias gets a lot of good moves. It gets access to, like, sort it by special. And Latias and Latios both get, like, a lot of solid options. Aura Sphere's cool. Draco, obviously. Energy Ball, Ice Beam, Mystical Fire, Psychic. all the good coverage moves, Surf, Thunderbolt, everything. They get like all the stuff. They're legendaries, and you can use them in a lot of different viable situations. I think it's a very good Pokemon. Obviously, things like Melmetal, Magearna slow it down a lot, but they're gonna be good, right? So I would rank regular Latias probably right here. And that's probably thinking like, what? It's a legendary. Why aren't you ranking it higher? It just has too many weaknesses, and it doesn't have Levitate in this format, right? So it's good, but it's not like amazing. And I think there are better options. And then Mega Latias, I would probably rank about here. You can even see where I put it. I put it behind Flamigo in front of Blaziken, just because I think it's still usable. It's one of the few ones that is usable as like a dual screen setup, and it's just kind of underwhelming. Now, the reason why I ranked Latias so low, and I'm going to rank Latios a little bit higher, is because Latios gets like a much higher base special attack, and same thing goes for its Mega. It's just higher base special attack. So you're going to use like basically the same sort of set and be building Latios like aggressive. I think one of the cool things about Latias that we are going to talk about is it is like a good dual screens user. You can open up dual screens with this thing and then just go into like maybe Mega Evolving it later and stuff like that. Kind of like how I tend to play Meganium on a lot of my teams. It's viable to do that with like, you know, Draco and like a Psychic coverage move, or like an Ice Beam or a Thunderbolt. This is probably the best way to play Latias in my opinion. But then again, that just gets you like a upper B rank in my opinion. Latios, on the other hand, gets a lot of those same options, can be a little bit more aggressive with things like Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, and is basically built as like a weird Mewtwo, right? So it's basically built kind of like a Mewtwo in this format. So I would put Latios, honestly, I would put Latios right here, kind of upper in the A tier. So we got Latios in the A tier up here, right behind Porygon. And then Mega Latios is going to take a little bit of a dip, I think. Mega Latios takes a little bit of a dip, just because it's like, you know, going to go down into the B tier. I think it's still, Mega Latios is probably right about here. That's my opinion. Yeah, loss of Levitate hurts the Latias for sure. How's it going? It's going good. We're just doing a tier list ranking all of the viable picks in Legend ZA Mega Dimension. I think the Mega Latias are definitely viable. Like, they're in the upper parts of the B tier. But that being said, like, they're not going to be hanging with, like, Heatrans. Heatran is going to, like, kind of lock these guys out of the game, in my opinion. So let's talk about all three of the sort of Justices. We have Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion. I guess we also have Keldeo to talk about here. Cobalion is, I think, the worst one. So Cobalion gets access to like this stat spread right here. It's going to be very viable, right? But like it gets access to Sacred Sword, which is going to give you a +1 when you use your attack and stuff like that. The problem with this guy is he has a weakness to fire, he has a weakness to ground. Similar to like a lot of other Pokemon that share the same problem, Cobalion is just really hard to use in like a Garchomp-centered, Heatran-centered meta. You can outplay it really, really easily. Chandelure sends this guy absolutely to the Shadow Realm. You have to rock Stone Edge, which they usually don't, and it's pretty just underwhelming, I think, as far as like these sort of Justices go. Terrakion's definitely the best. Yeah. I would say Cobalion's definitely, like, you can't not have it be like in the B tier at least, because it's a legendary, but like, where would I put it? It's better than Palisand. It's better than Marowak. It's better than Golurk. It's right there. That's probably where I would put it. You know, it's definitely a usable Mon with good offensive options, but like I bet it's probably built like Life Orb or Sash is where I'd put it. I'm gonna rank Terrakion and Keldeo last. I think Virizion's actually pretty slept on, right? So Virizion's really cool. A lot of people tend to rank this guy low because it has like low base offensive stats, but it's actually pretty bulky, and the fact that it can be used like physical or special is like really, really nice. I tend to build this thing with Light Screen Reflect, and it's one of the more unique Light Screen Reflect users because we have a resistance to Earthquake. If you actually take a look at all the different Light Screen Reflect users that we have talked about, this is the first one that has a resistance to Earthquake. So basically, this thing is very similar to like a Meganium, right? And you would compare their stats here, Virizion just has better stats than Meganium does, which like Meganium is actually kind of usable in this format. Even like Mega Meganium, like Virizion almost can kind of hang with this, like higher base HP, obviously lower defense, obviously lower offensive stats, but like hangable special defense stat in my opinion. So it's like you could just go with like, you know, Focus Blast, and like a Solar Beam here and build it special if you wanted, or you can build it like physical with like Sacred Sword and like some other coverage move. I think it's good. I think it's better than Cobalion because it has a ground resist, right? That's basically what it comes down to. I'd probably put it like right here. You can't really see where I'm putting it because my beautiful face takes up a lot of it, but we're putting it behind Mega Golisopod in the B tier. It's just better than Cobalion, I think. I obviously still has a fire weakness and stuff like that, but it's really good as a lead into like a Garchomp meta, in my opinion. And then Terrakion. Terrakion is obviously the best one. Terrakion always has been, right? Look at that stat line, 129 base attack. It gets access to like Swords Dance. It gets access to Earthquake. It gets access to Head Smash. Holy moly, why'd they give this thing Head Smash? You build it with like a Life Orb, and then the last move could be like honestly anything you want, like a Close Combat. Like, don't mind if I do here. This guy cooks. Terrakion's busted, and I will not hear like that it's not busted, because what you can do is you can like EQ the Heatran and then Head Smash 2 for 1. You go to this Terrakion should always go 2 for 1. It's like a super Tyrantrum. It does so much damage. Like, this thing just deletes people on the damage side. You can also sash it if you want. I've seen people definitely sash the Terrakion and just go for Head Smash when they're at 1. Definitely like a solid option. I think it's very, very usable. I think Terrakion is the first S tier mon that we've had. That's my opinion. You will always go value with this guy. He's going to go 1 for 1. Guarantee, doesn't have to do anything particular about it. And you're probably going to go 1 for 2. So like you could use Terrakion and go like 1 for 2 every single time and get like, 8 plus KOs, like plus move, Head Smash, Life Orb, they're dead. I don't care if it's neutral, like they're gone. And you're probably going to KO multiple Pokemon using Terrakion a lot of the time too, because a lot of its moves are AoE moves, as gap closers in close combat, EQs AoE, Head Smashes gap closing. Like, it's a really, really solid mon. Just solid. And like, if you wanted to go with a Sacred Sword set to get like attack boost and not use Swords Dance, you could. That'd probably built more on a Sash set though, but very, very viable. Now let's talk about Keldeo here, because Keldeo got like a lot of boosts here. Very similar to a lot of these other water types. It has like a much higher base special attack than like other water types do. And it finally got access to Ice Beam. Holy moly, it's been like 8,000 years. So you have like sorted by special here, because it's definitely like a special attacker. You can utilize like Hydro Pump on it. You can utilize Secret Sword if you want to get like special attacking fighting coverage, make it a little bit of a mix sweeper, and also has Earth Power now. So like really good coverage on this thing. When I play it, I tend to go like this. I actually don't use fighting coverage on this guy when I play it, and I Life Orb it, right? So I think it's really, really solid. Very, very usable Pokemon. Weakness to Fairy, obviously, but it's one of the few good fire resists in this format. So I actually really value like Keldeo as a mon. I don't want to put it in A tier, but I think I'd put it like right behind PZ in the B tier. So like upper B. The problem with it is like it's still a little bit of a glass cannon. If you take in like 1 to 2 ticks of Life Orb, you get KO'd by like neutral Garchomp EQ. You get KO'd by like random like moves from like random mons. It's obviously still weak to things like Thunderbolt and Solar Beams and stuff like that as well. So it's hard to use, but it's like much better than I think like Melodic is, because it has access to so much more coverage options now than it ever has before. So going into Darkrai here, I think Darkrai is best built as like a Sashmon. So Darkrai right here, best built with Sash. Obviously, you have access to like Nasty Plot, you have access to like Dark Pulse, and then you have access to like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. So it's kind of like a weird bad Mewtwo, similar to like Latios' built, but it's like, I think, better defensive typing, just because it doesn't have as many weaknesses, because it's just solo, and has like just good coverage. It has good special attack stat too. It's actually higher than Latios. So like, you see the Latios is an A tier. Darkrai is going to be just a little bit better. I put Darkrai up here. Great Sashmon in my opinion. Really, really solid stuff. Gets access to a lot of really good things. I don't think it's as good as Bax, but I think it's a little bit better than Dango. I'm probably lowballing Dango, I think, but it's just like Heatran is so big, guys. I think Heatran is so important in this meta that having like a weakness to like all the things Heatran brings to the table and like Goldango just makes it really hard to use. But Darkrai also gets access to like Focus Blast and other good setup moves as well. Now, one of the problems with Darkrai is its weakness to Bug, and you see that like Golisopod is very high usage. So like, it's one of those things where I don't really like Mega Darkrai. Mega Darkrai gains like more special attack, massive boost to its defense and Spadef, but again, because it's a Mega, you have to ask for a lot of same permissions. You can go for like Calm Mind instead and play like that same sort of like Dark Pulse, like slow methodical game with the Darkrai with like Ice Beam and other things like that. And technically if you wanted to build it physically, you still could as well, but I don't think it's nearly as good as like Sash Darkrai. I think it's going to massively underperform when compared to it. I would probably put it like, I'm looking at like over here, I'd probably put it above Latias. I don't particularly like it that much. You see it's right after Flamigo. It's above Latias in the B tier, and that's because like it gets one tapped by First Impression from Golisopod, and like in a 4-player lobby, someone's going to have a Golisopod. They're going to see your Darkrai, they're going to see Don't Mind If I Do. It's weak against Fairy. Magearna has a good matchup into it. And the problem is you're playing basically base Darkrai without an item, without that sash, which means you can't even really use the Darkrai correctly, in my opinion. So like when you use this thing, you have to be like massively winning, build like a full screens team around it, and even then it doesn't really do all that much, in my opinion. So yeah, Darkrai is going to be a little bit sad here as the big like protagonist or the antagonist for the game, but I do think that like regular Darkrai is very viable. It's time to talk about Heatran. Heatran, the big man with the plan here. You can build this guy Life Orb. You can build it Shuca Berry, AV. You can build it like Sash. I've seen Sash Heatran. He gets Magma Storm, which is going to be one of the best moves in the game, being able to create like a huge vortex of like fire and sun. Doing damage over time. It's great against like Sash users. Gets access to Earth Power. Gets access to Solar Beam. Gets access to Flash Cannon. These are all very, very good moves in this format. They're all the stuff that just pins every sort of like weird mon. This is like the highest skill check Pokemon in the game. Like if you're trying to use like, I played a game where I used like Heatran recently. I think it was today's upload on the main channel, where I was fighting against someone that had like a full EV team. They had like Glaceon, Sylveon, and like Vaporeon, and I just completely didn't even let them play the game. Heatran had perfect super effective coverages against like everything. It also does get Steel Beam. Yeah, I think it does get Steel Beam. Yep, so it gets Steel Beam too if you want to use that instead of Flash Cannon. Very, very solid mon. I think Heatran is like probably one of the best Pokemon in the meta. And while it does have that weakness to like fighting and ground, which is very, very important, it's always surrounded by like 2 things that like check those ground type users. So it's big delete damage, great earth power coverage as well. Really, really like it. So it's what I like about it is you can also check other Heatrans with your Heatran. What moveset did you say you like for Golisopod? I think like probably Waterfall, First Impression, Leech Life, and let's go back to Golisopod. So we have First Impression, we got Waterfall, we got Leech Life, and then what was the last move? Because I tend to play it like really aggressive. What was the last move? It was Drill Run. Yeah, Drill Run, sorry. I've been streaming for like a really long time, so like that's probably what I would recommend for Golisopod. Probably with like a Life Orb set. But yeah, Heatran's going to be cracked. Heatran's obviously S tier pick, even better than Terrakion in my opinion. Very, very usable. The whole meta is centered around this guy winning the game, right? So I think it's going to be really, really good. You need to be using Heatran in your games. It's like that strong. Now, Mega Heatran on the same like flip side is not as good as like regular Heatran, right? So like Mega Heatran gets like a massive boost to special attack, good boost to like its Spadef, but it doesn't really like need those boosts. And like it's a lot of Mega energy required just to do like a little bit more damage. Heatran's problem isn't damage. It's like damage mitigation, right? So like a Life Orb Heatran is actually just like better than Mega Heatran in my opinion. So where would we put Mega Heatran? It's obviously going to be good because Heatran doesn't need those boosts. It's probably still going to be an A tier mon, but probably right about like here. It's not as good as things like Marowak and like Latios in my opinion. So that's where I would probably put it. I think it's still usable, but like you're better off obviously with like an S tier Heatran, like just a standard like Life Orb Heatran, or even like a more defensive one like an AV or like a Shuca or like a Water Reducer, like a Fighting Reduce Berry, like a Chople Berry. Meloetta is a Pokemon that we've seen pop up here and there. It's actually better built without using like the Relic Song. I think it's better built with just like Calm Mind, like Thunderbolt, right? You can build it with like Tri-Attack. I believe it gets Tri-Attack. I think it does get Tri-Attack. It doesn't say it. I don't know if it does, but like you could use it if you want. It gets access to like Psychic, obviously. And you can pick up KOs here. Like that's a lot of damage off like a Life Orb set. It's very usable. Like Calm Mind, Thunderbolt, Psychic makes things viable. 128 is good here. So it's a usable Pokemon. Psychic normal typing is pretty unique as well. Gets access to like Energy Ball if you want that coverage. I think it might even get like a couple other, like I think it gets, where else does it get? It gets a couple viable options, but like I think it's cool. So Meloetta is like definitely viable, but it's one of those things that it's like there are so many better special attackers. I'd rather use a Latios in a lot of situations. So like I'd probably put it in the B tier. I think it's better than Cobalion. It's better than Tatsu. It's better than Mega Glim. It's better than Rime. I'd put it, you can't see where I'm putting it. Let's see. So I'd put it above Virizion, behind Mega Golisopod. The problem with Mega Meloetta is it has that weakness to first impression from, like, Golisopod, right? So it's like you can't really put it higher than, like, that. Like, that's why the Latias aren't, like, cracked. Because, like, Golisopod just comes out and absolutely sends them to the Shadow Realm here. So I think it's a usable mon, but it's harder to use than most people give it credit for. Now, Genesect. I think a lot of people don't really like Genesect. I don't know why we're not seeing Genesect, like, everywhere. This is a really good stat line. 120, 120, you can build it physical or special, but if you build it special with like a Life Orb set, right, it gets all of the coverage. It has Ice Beam, it has Thunderbolt, right? It has access to, I think it has access to setup moves too, but like, look at these coverage moves. Ancient Power, Dark Pulse, Energy Ball. You can go Gunk Shot if you want physical. It gets access to screens if you want to go screens. It gets access to Steel Beam, right? This guy gets everything. It also gets like Flamethrower if you want to go Flamethrower. It gets literally everything. Don't use this thing with the drives. It's just better with the Life Orb. This thing is so good. I really, really think this Pokemon is like super, super good. It only has a weakness against fire, so as long as you have coverage for fire, you can get a lot of value off this thing. I really, really like this guy. I like it so much, I'm putting it right behind Swampert in the A tier. I don't think it's an S tier pick because you will miss KOs. It's not as good into like Sash sets, and you know, it is pretty it is pretty like squishy for the most part, because while it has like good resistances and good defensive typing, 71, 95, 95 is a little bit bad. Douse Drive, Technoblast, good against fires. It doesn't KO though, right? It doesn't KO. It's cool, right? But like, you know, you could use other things. I think like Life Orb, because like if you Douse Drive, you don't get the boost to like your Thunderbolts and your Ice Beam to be able to pick up the KOs on the Garchomps, in my opinion. So I think like this is still probably like the standard way to play this guy. I really like it though. I think that it's good into a lot of different things. Very, very solid. One of my favorites, and it's pretty viable, right? So let's talk about Volcanion here. Volcanion is like, if you were to compare it to one Pokemon, you'd obviously be comparing it to Heatran because, like, you know, it gets Heat Wave instead of Magma Storm. It gets Steam Eruption, which is actually really good into, like, other Heatrans. And then it still gets that Earth Power for even more Heatran and Magearna coverage. And then it gets access to Solar Beam still. So it's very similar to Heatran. You build it with a Life Orb. And it only has, like, a 2x weakness to ground. So you might even think that this is better than Heatran. Problem is, it's not for some reason. I don't even know how to explain it. I think like Heatran getting that secondary stab on like the Steel Beams and the Flash Cannons, things like that, gives it a slight advantage. I think Volcanion is usable for sure. One of the best Pokemon in the meta, but it's not Heatran. It's just not Heatran, right? I think Heat Wave also not being that Magma Storm. Magma Storm is a big thing of what carries Heatran in my opinion. It's a good mon, but it's probably right here at the top of A, as opposed to in the S tier. That's where I would put Volcanion. I think Volcanion is still very, very good. It's one of those things that, like, if you're using Volcanion and you go up against their Heatran, you're like, I'm going to use Earth Power against you. You won't KO, and then they'll, like, dump truck you back with, like, you know, like a Solar Beam Earth Power combo, and it's just, like, it sucks, man. So, like, I feel like Volcanion is, like, the perfect Pokemon that gets doubled up on by, like, every little bit of moves. Maybe it's just not working for me as far as other people, but I really do like the Heatran more as, like, a defensive option. So let's talk about Hoopa and Hoopa Unbound. I utilized Hoopa Unbound in my newest YouTube video today, and it was usable. I think Hoopa Unbound is obviously better than base form Hoopa, but both of them are viable. A lot of people don't even know that the base form Hoopa has like a 150 base special attack stat and a 110 base attack stat. But basically, if you're going to be building like base form Hoopa, you'd build it with like Nasty Plot, you know, Psychic, and I think it gets like Hyperspace Hole is its signature move here. Psychic's just better than this. So sorted by special, right? You get access to things like, you know, Focus Blast, Psychic, Shadow Ball if you want to, Thunderbolt. So like Thunderbolt, Psychic, maybe like a Focus Blast or something. If you wanted to go with a Shadow Ball for stab, you could, right? So that's a solid moveset for this guy with like a Life Orb or a Sash if you want to do something like that. As far as Hoopa Unbound goes, I tend, you know, a lot of people tend to still like this thing special. Let me know if you agree or disagree, whether you want to build it special or physical. If you want to build it special, you can build the same set as that Hoopa. But I tend to build it physical because it gets access to Hyperspace Fury, right? Going to be a lot of damage. It's basically like a Dark Close Combat for the most part. Has like a lot of like hands that come out of nowhere and just like start punching things. It gets access to like a bunch of really cool physical moves too. I really like its physical coverage. It gets access to things like, you know, Ice Punch, which is good against dragons, Phantom Force for gap closing. It gets access to Stab Psychic Fangs, which I really, really like. And look at those stats, like 160, 170. It deals a lot of damage if you have a Life Orb on. If you want to see how I play Hoopa, again, that is going to be this video right here. I think Hoopa Unbound is going to be a little bit better, but it's not amazing. Hoopa Bound is really good with Terra Fire, Terra Blast. You're talking about for VGC, right? We're talking about for Legend ZA, right? That would be Hoopa Bound. Like both of these are viable in like VGC when they're legal, but it's just not very often that they're legal, right? Or you could also be talking about singles and stuff like that. But I think that like base form, like I think Hoopa Unbound is probably in the B tier. I'd probably put it like above Mimikyu, behind Latias, and I think that like this Hoopa, I guess like the bound one, is probably also in the B tier. But I'd put it like above Glimmora, behind Melodic. So like they're usable for sure, but like they have massive weaknesses to like first impression. 4 times weakness to first impression is too deep, man. Can't be having that on this guy over here. First impression is still gonna pop this thing as well, so it's just a lot of damage. They're both like obviously Life Orb users too, so like that takes away your Life Orb away from other mons like these guys that want to use it as well. So we're looking at Magearna and Mega Magearna. We're getting down to the meat and potatoes here. Magearna and Mega Magearna. So Magearna is honestly, like, if we were to rank both of them, let's rank both of them, right? So let's just rank the regular Magearna first. I think this is the best Pokemon in the format, right? You get access to like 4 Cannon, you get access to Steel Beam, you get access to like Calm Mind if you want it, you have Solar Beam if you want to be able to check other things like that. The only thing with this guy is it doesn't get good coverages into like fire, it doesn't get Earth Power, right? So that's like the only issue with this thing. Otherwise it'd be like the perfect Pokemon. You also get access to like Ice Beam and Thunderbolt and stuff like that. Like you have all the coverage. I actually think this thing is best built with a Shuca Berry or an Aka Berry. That way you're not taking like that big earthquake damage, because you don't even need the Life Orb on this thing. All of its moves are so strong, they don't need Life Orb boosts. You have 130, you're so strong. Same as like Latios and Heatran, you're massively strong. Great base defenses, great base HP. I think it's an easy, obvious, like best Pokemon in the format is going to be Magearna. Now, Mega Magearna is a little bit different because like you do need that defensive item or offensive item to correctly use it. And like the difference between these two is like the Mega one, it gets like massive special attack, but like you're actually putting a lot of those points that you get into like things like speed and attack. It's not as like viable. So it's still usable. I think in our original tier list, I put Mega Magearna also in S tier. I don't think that's true anymore. It takes so much babysitting to get this thing actually active. You need like a good dual screens user. You need like a lot of good teammates. I think it's still potentially like an A tier mon, but it's not quite as good in my opinion. I think it's probably right about here in the A tier. It's still definitely usable because Magearna is so good, it doesn't even need its item. Versus like, you know, Darkrai, if you're playing Darkrai and you're going Mega, like you need to be Sash Darkrai to be A tier. Magearna's good in S tier, even if it didn't have an item, it'd still be like right here, you know? Like I think like the fact that Magearna is not reliant on its item, like things like Baxcalibur and Darkrai are, means that Mega Magearna is still very viable, but like I don't think it's like an S tier anymore. Let's talk about Marshadow. Now, Marshadow gets some really cool options here. Marshadow gets access, like it's commonly built Sash, by the way, and gets access to Phantom Force, but it also gets access to Spectral Thief, which is really cool because it can take all their buffs before dealing damage. This was the first mythical / legendary I used when Season 5 started. I love being able to take away all the boosts from like Garchomps, Dondozos, stuff like that. You say Blaze Kick is funny. Blaze Kick is cool. I think commonly you don't really need that because like you could hit steel types with close combat, which is stab. But like Spectral Thief, close combat, Phantom Force, that's how I tend to play this guy. And I think I had Ice Punch on this last thing just for Garchomp coverage. Solid. Like one of the best Sash users, probably the best Sash user in the game. You can also Life Orb it if you want, but I really like Sash. So like if Blaziken is a Sash user that uses fighting, it's down here, it's going to be better, right? And if we're talking about other Sash users, you know, Ceruledge is very similar. It's better, right? So raising it up. I'd put Marshadow probably right here. Darkrai is a good Sash user. I think Marshadow is a little bit better one. Close combat, Phantom Force, Gap Closer, Spectral Thief is a unique special move. Like I think that it's a very, very usable Pokemon. That's just where I would put it personally. But let me know if you agree or disagree. I think that like Marshadow could be seen as like, you know, one of those Pokemon that, let me move this over here so you guys can look at more of the actual list. There we go. So you guys can see a little bit more of the list now. But I think Marshadow is very usable. So I'd put it in the A tier for sure. There's a lot of A tier mons. Honestly, we probably could move a couple of these down to the B tier, like the Corv and maybe the Dozo. But like, I think there's a lot of good viable Pokemon. Let's take a look at Zeraora here. So Zeraora here. I think Zeraora is commonly built Sash or Orb, right? So the way this guy's built is usually still built physical because it has a slightly better physical moveset. You can go with something like Plasma Fist, which is going to be good. Play Rough. It gets access to like Blaze Kick. This guy could use Blaze Kick, but still I think Close Combat's going to be a little bit better, right? So like those are some of the moves you play on Sash Zeraora. It's viable, right? It's viable, but like not particularly viable. It's just hard to explain like what Zero really brings to the table. I feel like Zero is so close to being good, but Plasma Fist always misses. I think that's a good way of putting it. I think it's definitely like an example of like an underwhelming Sash user. Zeraora is definitely going to be in like the B tier, probably actually near the bottom. Probably right about here. I think is a good place to put Zeraora. I think things like Cleaver and Virizion have a lot more like dedicated like lines that they want to actually make work, and so I'm just not a big fan of it. I think Zeraora Z is a little bit more viable. So if you take a look at both of them right here, the Mega gets a significant boost to attack, so you actually can pick up KOs, and now you can build it special. So like I think with Zeraora, this one, I think it's actually better built special with like Charge. That's how I like to play it, with like Thunderbolt. And so like if you were to comparing this to something, you'd be comparing it to like an Ampharos. And then, like, realistically, because you're doing that, you don't really need to use this guy. But that being said, you can go for a lot of damage with this thing. You mold it physical or special. Gets a lot of good coverage. I think it's viable, but I don't particularly like it that much. I think it's not nearly even as good as, like, Lucario or Absol. It's one of those mons that, like, Zeraora is so reliant on Sash that it probably is even actually better than base form Zeraora. It's probably right around here. I think Straptor might even be a better choice. I'd rather have things like Tatsu and Glimmora on my team. I just don't think this Pokemon is very good. It takes too much setup. It has the weakness to Earthquake. It's not really bringing enough to the table. Now we have one more Pokemon. We have Melmetal. Now Melmetal is a Pokemon that like is absurdly broken, right? Zeraora. So Melmetal right here. Look at this stat line. 143, 143, you know, you can go like full attack and just, you don't even have to go full HP because I think you like massive diminishing returns on things, but you can build it with like Life Orb, you can build it with like Assault Vest, you can build it with an Occa Berry to cut damage from fire, you can build it with Shucca Berry. These are all solid options, right? These are all really, really solid options. I think like most people play it with Double Iron Bash, which is actually really good in this format because you can have 2 chances to flinch with this thing, which is actually ridiculous. Double hit move. Some people still use Heavy Slam for gap closing, but it gets Earthquake, it gets Ice Punch, and then you can put like, there's a bunch of other things. A lot of people actually just go Thunder Punch here for like random Gyarados coverage. Really, really like usable Pokemon. I'm actually really not sure where to put it because I know it's in the S tier, but I'm going to let you guys decide. Where does it go in the S tier? Let me know what you guys think. Where would it be? I think it's better than Terrakion. I would personally put it right here. I would personally put it right there. But I don't know if that's right. Because I think Heatran is better. Personally, I think Magearna is better. There are some people that say Melmetal is actually the best Pokemon in the meta, right? I think Melmetal goes here. I want to hear you guys' opinion on it. But I think it's better than Terrakion. I think behind Terrakion because it moves so slow. So if that's the problem, some people like to go Heavy Slam for gap closers. But I think Melmetal is also a mon that like on the plus map, for example, is so good. Versus like the wide open space map, Melmetal's like has to do a lot of walking. It's not as good. But like on the plus map where everyone's fighting in the middle, Melmetal just dump trucks everybody. Gets into the corner and Double Iron Bashes. Like it's a very map specific mon in my opinion. But I would put it above Terrakion. Because, like, you can't one-shot it unless you have, like, a specific team with, like, a right kind of Life Orb boost on, like, a plus move. Otherwise, you just cannot one-shot this thing. So the last thing I want to do here, if you guys have opinions on Melmetal, please let me know. I might move around a couple of these tiers. I think Corviknight might move to B. And I think Dozo can still hang in A. I think I'm going to move Ceruledge to B as well. Is there anything that needs to go into the C tier from here? Palossand, I want to keep in B, but it is probably C. And I think Sceptile also could go down there. I think that is a better looking list. Armarouge should definitely be A tier. No, definitely not, right? So like a lot of the things Armarouge does is done better by like Heatran. Armarouge got replaced by Heatran. Heatran and Volcanion both do Armarouge job better than Armarouge does. I think Armarouge was much better in Season 4, but in Season 5, it gets outclassed by the Legendaries, in my opinion. This is a much better looking list. Cool. So yeah, I think it's a good one. I think let's unmaximize my little face over here. There we go. Right there. That's a good looking list. So there we go. That's the list. Let me know if you agree or disagree, but these are, I think, all of the viable Pokemon in Pokemon Legends ZA Mega Dimension. Obviously, we're not listing Pokemon that were already in the decks, things like Garchomp, Gyarados, Excadrill, stuff like that. This is just the Pokemon that came in the Mega Dimension DLC. But I think it's a pretty good, like, honest list that goes over my thoughts on why things are good. Things like Earthquake are going to be premium in this format. Things like Magma Storm, Fire Coverage could be premium in this format. The Pokemon that can leverage those moves aggressively are going to be the ones that are going to come out on top, and the Pokemon that can weather that storm defensively while still taking super effective damage versus those things and live and reply back, those are going to be the things that have a higher usage than others. So hopefully you guys like this list. If you guys like this list, think about checking out some of the other content on some of the other channels. We got a lot of Legends ZA content over here. We got a lot of BGZ content over here. We're also starting up TCG content again back on the TCG channel. So if you guys like that, think about checking out all that stuff. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, that's going to be the end of what would be the YouTube video. My voice is shot. We streamed straight for like over 2 hours. Did an absolutely like crazy good job, I think. We're probably going to be hosting some Legends ZA tours a little bit later on this week. Think about checking out the Discord to know when those things are actually coming up. But yeah, I'm going to be getting on out of here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys like this list. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace. And I will actually catch you guys next time I go live. See ya.